Hello, everyone, and thank you for spending your Thursday, August 10th with me. I'm so excited to see so many of my friends in the chat. Hello, Miss Donna Marie. Hey, Scott. I see you're tired Irish detective. Thank you so much to all of my mods for keeping the chat classy. Please be kind in the chat or they will put you in timeout or they may even block you. And you don't want that to happen. So guide your actions accordingly. We have so much to cover tonight. We have such a great show for you. Oblivious Benson is coming back tonight. She was on our last live stream and she was so popular that I decided to invite her back for a whole show because she's got some really, really interesting tips and tricks for all of my fellow armchair detectives. She has amazing ways of finding things out and sleuthing and finding missing persons. And she's just a treasure trove of information. So she's going to be joining me in a second. But a quick shout out and thank you to all of my subscribers. Without you guys, I wouldn't be able to do this. So if you are not subscribed, what are you waiting for? It's free. Hit the subscribe button below and the thumbs up. And as of going live tonight, I am only, I think, 40 subscribers away from 5,000 subscribers in my first month. I think it's only been 30 days since I started posting my own videos. So that is amazing. Thank you so much. If you're not subscribed, please do it now and hit the like button now while you're thinking of it. I'm also thinking about starting memberships soon, so keep an eye out for that. The first thing I want to address today is I went on TikTok recently. I'm a very new TikTok user and I don't really use TikTok ever or know how to use it. But I went on TikTok yesterday and I saw live video of Maui burning. And it was heart-wrenching, to say the least, to see some of these videos of people who were actively jumping in the water while their homes were burning. NBC has said that Lahaina is 80% contained. There are 6 fires still burning on Maui. The death toll, according to NBC, is up to 53 people. So prayers up and prayers out for everyone on Maui and in the area and everyone who has families there. I watched people yesterday on TikTok who were saying that their cell service wasn't working. If anybody could please reach out to my family. My heart breaks for them. And I know your heart breaks for them too. And all of the residents and visitors to Maui have been evacuated or are in the process of being evacuated. So I just want to send prayers out to them. Also, a recent update in the Heuermann's case. We spoke last week about the prosecution making a motion to compel Rex Heuermann, who is accused of murdering 3 of the Gilgo 4, Melissa Barthelemy, Megan Waterman, and Amber Costello. The prosecution made a motion to compel Rex Heuermann to give a buccal swab DNA sample. They are saying that it's probative, that there's probable cause to believe that he committed these crimes, and that he should be forced to give a DNA sample. The defense had countered and said that he should not have to give a sample because in asking for a sample, the prosecution has admitted that they don't have evidence that the pizza crust that we talked about had been actually used by Heuermann, which is an interesting opposition to that motion. But the prosecution said that it expected that the information provided by the buccal swab would give them better evidence that he had actually committed the crimes, and the court granted the motion. So Judge Mazie granted the motion. It is required that Heuermann give a cheek swab DNA sample on or about, I think it's August 15th. His lawyer is allowed to be present for that, and so that is a win for the prosecution. Meanwhile, yesterday, Suffolk County Police Commissioner Rodney Harrison gave an interview to Joy Brown of Newsday, who I can't even believe has been with Newsday for almost 40 years. but she has. She's been around for a very long time. She's an excellent journalist. If you haven't seen that video interview, I think you can get it from newsday.com. I think the video itself is not behind a paywall. I know that Newsday's articles are behind a paywall. But he did reveal, Harrison, that Heuermann had been engaging in some very disturbing activity right prior to the arrest while he was being tailed by investigators. And he also offered a definitive statement on Shannon Gilbert's connection to the case. And he said it's a horrible accident with regard to Shannon Gilbert. And as of right now, myself and the investigators assigned to the homicide squad still believe it was just an incident where she ran into the marsh and unfortunately drowned on that horrible day. So I was a little surprised to hear this because I know that a lot of us think that Rex might be connected to Shannon. So let's take a little poll in the chat. If anybody thinks that Rex could be connected to Shannon, give me a 1 in the chat. If you think that Rex absolutely had nothing to do with Shannon and her death was an accident, put a 2 in the chat. We'll see what we see there. I don't know why my chat on here is not moving. Just look at the YouTube chat. Let's see. I don't know. My chat's not moving. Very strange. Okay. I don't know. Something's going on in my chat here. Can you guys? Nothing's happening. Okay. Well, without further ado, I'm going to bring in Oblivious Benson, who is also known as Kat with a K, and she's going to introduce herself and tell you a little bit about herself. Welcome, Kat.
Hi,
Oblivious
everyone.
Benson.
This is my face. I'm not Kathleen Madigan, although I thank you guys for asking about that, the last chat. My name's Kat, and I do OSINT work, open source intelligence. I basically gather data and try to utilize stuff from the past that maybe we think is lost online and try to whittle out what information could be helpful to cold cases in particular. Although later on, if you don't mind, I'll bring up a recent case that I've been working on that's interesting, to say the least. But I think that there's a lot of things that people can redirect their efforts to, instead of indulging in things like potential conspiracy theories or guesswork or even just speculation. If you really want to help, I think my goal today is to kind of teach people how to do that in a way that could actually be very helpful, in particular with cases where there is so much information like this one.
Right. And I think the one thing that Kat and I both agree on, first of all, I love her name because I'm a huge Mariska Hargitay fan and a big fan of Law and Order SVU. But also, I want to refer to you as my very own personal Penelope Garcia, because that is...
I love her.
You got the glasses, the whole, and that is a Criminal Minds reference for those of us, those of you who don't know. And actually, there's a new season of Criminal Minds, which if you haven't seen it yet, it's really good. But it's so interesting to see how the characters have aged. You know, because I watch the reruns all the time, and I'm so used to seeing them as they were whenever that show was on 10 years ago, and now it's kind of a shock to see how everyone's aged, but in a good way. You know,
in a good way.
Show.
And the woman who plays Garcia, like, I don't drink. I'm allergic to it. It gives me hives. But I desperately, if I did, I would drink her tequila. She has her own tequila.
Really? I didn't know
she
that.
has or vodka maybe. I honestly, I don't know much about alcohol, but she has a distillery in California.
Yeah.
And my fantasy is to one day be able to hold down a drink so I can just go there and sip a cocktail from the Garcia herself. She rules.
Oh, I love her. I love everything about her. She's so quirky. She's one of the best characters on TV, in my opinion.
She really is. And actually what she does in the show it's kind of counterproductive, I think, to everything we're trying to do, because in the show, she makes it look like she can just tick, 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 and then boom, here's the information, right?
Yeah.
Um, in a way that can be so, but the type of information she gets is certainly not commonly available even to the FBI. Like, she does it so fast, they're showing you like a very shortened version of it.
Right.
But imagine if Garcia had 20 hours to focus on like the Lisk case. Jesus, the amount of stuff she could come up
It
with.
would be solved already. I
Yeah,
mean,
it would be
she'd know
solved.
she'd know everything
She'd
already.
know it
So
all.
I just want to, reinforce that everything that you do is totally legal. You're not hacking. You're not doing anything illegal,
Nope.
and you are out there on your own time helping people out of the goodness of your own heart.
Yeah, I left the hacker life behind me. I literally started doing this just because it's odd. Do you ever feel like you have a lot of true crime, I guess, going on around you? I don't know if
Yeah.
most people, if it's like something just because of our proximity to cases or where we choose to live. But I mean, I was telling you earlier, my family's been in like a mass shooting. I've been attacked by someone and stabbed. I've had so many friends that have been murdered, gone missing, like all sorts of horrible stuff. And I'm like, does this happen to everybody? But I'm also extremely nosy, and I kind of refuse to give up on some things. And, I've had a friend of a friend go missing and spent years looking into her case. And we were told, like, there was nothing available online. There's no way we're going to find anything else. Lo and behold, in 2019, me and her sister were able to get search warrants for this specific case, the Roxanne Paltoff case. And in
Wow.
that one, the police said it's dead in the water. We got nothing. And all it took was looking at the phone records and realizing they had the wrong ones. The cops had the wrong date and they had the wrong records. And when you look at the right records, you see that there's roaming charges right when her boyfriend states he was in a hotel, but according to these charges, he was not. So that led to a search warrant. It literally took one pair of eyes. And then we found an old tip using the Wayback Machine where a woman went in, she posted a tip. She said, I saw this girl at the hotel. I saw her leave. I saw her get into this color van. I heard the fight. I let her in my room. There were no witnesses before that. But we found an old post from like 2013, which was almost, what is that, like 7 years after she went missing or something? A woman who had gotten out of the SW life, the sex worker life, if you will. We call it
Yeah.
SW.
SW is good. I like
Yeah,
that.
that's good because it's a job. It's hard and they do
Yeah.
it. So
Except
let's
not for
not.
everybody. Some people are
It's not
forced
for
into it.
everybody.
Right.
I kind of cringe sometimes when people say like prostitute and stuff like that because it has a negative connotation.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I mean, crab fishermen also risk their lives and go out there, and it's one of the most dangerous jobs on earth. But I consider this like, yes, it's a choice. Yes, you put yourself in that environment, but some women don't. Some women get psychologically sucked in. They get kidnapped. They get put into it by force, and they adapt. And it's very fascinating when they get out. A lot of them do want to talk about it. They want people to listen, most of all. And this specific woman had recovered and made a comment on an anonymous random forum in the middle of the internet where no one could see it. And then the next day she took that comment off. I happened to be there that day reading that forum and took a screenshot. So we were able to actually find her on Facebook, speak to her. She gave us so much valuable information, and she finally got to be interviewed by police. She had been trying to be interviewed for years when this case happened.
Wow. So you're using your skills to really make a difference for people and to really help people, which is what I love. I love that. And Darlene, I'm sorry that you were kidnapped. I just had a
oh no.
That's horrible. Yeah, I just had a comment up there. Darlene Wolf said she was kidnapped when she was in junior high. That's horrifying. Terrible.
Look at Jennifer. She just named my buddy. Yeah, I know. That's one of my really good friends, Jennifer, Alex. That's so wild. Okay. He's going to love seeing that.
There you go.
He's probably going to be
Shout
like,
out to Alex Voorhees.
Yeah, I know him very well, actually. Yeah, I do know Alex. And you know what? Alex actually has taught me a lot, and we've taught each other a lot. I'm more of a social engineer, and he's more of a software type of guy. He's really good at getting all sorts of, I'm not even going to say what, but he can get a lot of information that I can't, and I can get information he can't, and that's a really good friend of mine. He's a great guy. He does the same thing I do. And it's kind of weird because there's a lot of information available online that people don't realize is out in the open. It's 100% public. Anybody can see it. It's not illegal in any way to look at. It's not illegal to source from, and it's not illegal to collect and tip in if you think it's important. And
Right.
I hate to think if me and Roxanne's sister hadn't been so nosy, we might not have these search warrants in 2019.
Wow.
So when
So
I
what was
think
the end
about
result of
that,
that?
I mean, they got interviews, they went through, they spoke to some people, and the case is pending. That's the unfortunate part of what we do. And I'm sure Alex can also attest to this.
Mm-hmm.
You can tip in all you want, and the cops can be really excited. I've had cops who are like, yes, and they call me back from like, I've had an FBI guy call me back from Florida and be like, where did you get this? And I had to explain to him how the Wayback Machine works and how like
Right.
you can get it. Like there are police that actually don't really know how to do this, and their department doesn't have the budget to hire people to do this, or they reject FBI support and then later on get surprised when a random citizen comes up and says, hey, I found this. You know, these are leads that there's also, I'm not blaming them, there's also no way that they could know that some of these things exist. A lot of
Right.
people didn't even know that there were escort forums where, you know, SWs and escorts and Johns talk about each other and
Right. And
review
we're
each
going to
other.
get into that right now. So that's an excellent segue,
Yeah.
Benson. So here we go. All right.
Let's
So
get
for
into it.
those of you who do not know, there is an official website that is run by Suffolk County, which is called, and this is at gilgonews.com. And this tells you everything you need to know about this investigation and about the victims and about everything that they know so far. And it's public. So we're just going to look at some of the public information here. So, Kat, you tell me where you want me to go first. These are the victims.
Let's start with, who was the first one we were talking about earlier? Let's go to Melissa Bartholomew.
Mhm.
There is something very fascinating. Did you want to share at all? I don't want to like.
No, I'm
jump
gonna
the
let
gun.
you. I'm gonna let you run with it because this is your
Okay.
This is your expertise. And
Well,
that
I was gonna ask you about the notes that girl sent you. If you mind
that
me recalling
stuff,
that.
I'm not going to get into that
Okay,
right
we're not gonna
now
get into
because we can't verify its authenticity, but you can talk about it without actually physically looking at the notes because that is
Okay,
also
cool,
a connection that you made. I have all of some of my amazing subscribers who are sending me all kinds of information, but I don't want to dox anybody and I don't want to put it out there until we vet it. But since Kat, you made the connection, you're free to talk about it.
That honestly true. I was shaking. You saw me. I was like, I need to go have a cigarette.
Yeah.
I got so stressed out when I saw that.
Yeah, so I'm going to read this because a lot of people, if they're watching on their phone or they're just listening, they're not going to be able to read it. Also, the font is small. So let me just read through this. You can stop me as you see fit. Melissa Bartholomew was last seen at her residence, a basement apartment at 1149 Underhill Avenue in the Unionport section of the Bronx on July 12th of 2009. She was 4 feet, 10 inches tall and was 24 years old when she was last seen.
I'm going to stop you right there real quick.
Yep.
Let's pull out one piece of information from that and put it in our, this is how we're going to go through, this is how my brain works. All right. We're going to take a little piece of information. We're going to put that in a pile to the side to remember later. And that information is right there. It says the Unionport section of the Bronx. Remember that. Okay.
Okay. I thought you were going to say 4 feet, 10 inches tall because that's significant to me as well. Because
it is, but like that's kind of a well-known thing. I think the Bronx thing is very interesting though.
Okay. Bartholomew was a sex worker who advertised on Adult Friend Finder as well as other sites. So Adult Friend Finder is one of these sites like Craigslist or Backpage, right?
Well, Adult Friend Finder is interesting. That's very unique, and it's in a way a little unfortunate, but I'll explain why it's kind of not. Adult Friend Finder has a paywall. You can see ads, but you can't really see the interaction with the ad or the full ad unless you have an account. Now, why it's not so much of a bad thing in this case is because some lucky person went on Adult Friend Finder right after she went missing and took a screenshot of her ad. So we actually don't need to go find it. It already exists. You can look it up if you want. It's they actually show it on The Killing Season, I think. They show a screenshot of the ad. She has blonde hair. I think one of the pictures of her that's commonly used is also in the ad. But that's very interesting. I would, okay, so yeah, Adult Friend Finder, that's important.
Okay. She used the aliases Chloe and Very Sexy Chloe, all one word.
Mm-hmm.
That's significant too, right?
Very significant.
Because that's how we're gonna find her. You already taught me some stuff, Kat. Okay.
So we see Chloe, and we see very sexy Chloe. Now we have in our pile, we have Adult Friend Finder. We have Unionport section of the Bronx. Now recall 2009, and then remember those words, very sexy Chloe and Chloe.
Okay. She had tattoos of the words blaze and focus on her back and letters on her chest.
Mm-hmm. And now this is where I would say we don't even need to read anymore. That's where I stopped. That's where I freaked out, because Blaze is her handler, aka they call it a pimp, her boyfriend, whatever you want to call him. That was his name, Blaze. What's interesting is it says that it's tattooed on her back. One thing that I don't know if a lot of people are aware of is
I wasn't aware of it, so please share this.
In sex work, whether you're being trafficked or whether you're, I know this sounds crazy sounding, but voluntarily utilizing a pimp. And the reason women, a lot of people would go, why would you do that? Or how dare you say she chose a pimp? There is a whole process called choosing up where you can switch pimps. And then there's some that are very violent and aggressive and don't let you. And then there are some women who prefer to have one for protection. Shannon, for example, had a driver, Michael Pack. I always wondered a long time ago, like before I knew anything about this stuff, why don't they just take their own car when I'd see that on like shows or something like that? It's all about protection. It's all about having another male figure there that can be threatening should a John turn on you. So when you have one, a pimp, there's a couple of different things that they do with the women depending on what kind they are. If you're a quote unquote, I hate this word, but nice pimp, you're selling a woman.
Like oxymoron?
Yeah, it is. But if you're the boyfriend type of pimp who's not abusive and you're giving her a cut, first of all, you're a unicorn and you don't exist. But second of all, the closer they are to being not aggressive and allowing a woman to choose up, the less likely they are to have things like, for example, the tattoo, unless they were a real boyfriend friend figure for a long time before, which is a way of grooming. Basically, they have brands, some of these women, not all of them. But Blaze, for example, the reason I think that is a brand and not just a tattoo is because you had also provided me with information about someone who told you about another case, which was Jessica Taylor. And Jessica Taylor has the same tattoo, right? She has a Blaze tattoo.
Well, we're going to find out because she's also in this website. So we'll see if they say that in her bio.
And she was from the Bronx, right? Or that's where she was last picked up, according to, I think it was The Killing Season, right?
We can actually go to her right now and see. Let's see.
Yeah, I found that very interesting. Some of them they don't mention, like for example, with her, they might not mention the Blaze
They
tattoo.
don't really say anything about Jessica Taylor here.
Now here's why I think, because see how it says 2003?
Yes.
That was a long time ago. And I believe her, I could be wrong, but I believe her family didn't have a lot of people reaching out to gather info about her. You know what I mean? Cops coming saying, we need multiple pictures. We need to find her. We all know about the corruption going on at the time. There's not a lot of info for the older girls compared to the newly found, or the, I guess, Gilgo 4, you could say.
Right.
I would be very interested to see if that tip you got was accurate, but you got a tip saying that she had a Blaze tattoo. It just occurred to me now that woman could just be wrong and naming the wrong girl. But if that's so, we've got two victims that both have the tattooed name of the same pimp on them. That's very concerning to me.
Yeah.
And also, if you'll remember, they also spoke about how, and I don't know if this was like in a documentary I saw, I really should have done my due diligence on this part, but I remember hearing that Rex, I believe it was when he was calling Megan's sister or Melissa's sister.
He was calling Melissa's sister. She was like 15 years old. Yeah.
Didn't he mention a WH house in the Bronx?
I don't know. Let's read on here because it may be in here. Okay, so after the tattoos and the letters on her chest, she was also known to meet clients at bars, restaurants, and hotels on the west side of Manhattan. On July 12th of 2009, the night that she was last seen, Bartholomew told a friend she was going to see a man and would be back in the morning. This friend was aware that she was a SW, but Barthélemy offered no other details. Her cell phone records show she traveled from the Bronx to Manhattan, most likely via taxi. Barthélemy's mother had not heard from her or been able to contact her for a few days, so she reported her missing to the NYPD on July 18th of 2009. So that was 1 week later.
Yeah, this is interesting.
The investigation showed cell phone activity in Manhattan, Freeport, which is Long Island, Massapequa, which is where Heuermann lives, and Lindenhurst, which is also Long Island. Motels in and near these neighborhoods were investigated. After Barthélemy had been reported missing, her younger sister received a series of taunting phone calls from someone using Barthélemy's phone. These calls are believed to have come from the killer and were made from the area near the Port Authority bus terminal on 8th Avenue and also from near Penn Station. These areas were thoroughly canvassed immediately following the calls. However, due to the large amount of pedestrian and vehicle traffic, no leads were developed. On December 11th, 2010, Barthélemy's body was found on the north side of Ocean Parkway near Gilgo Beach during the search for Shannon Gilbert. Although she was the first victim found, she is believed to be the second of the Gilgo Four to be killed.
There's something in there that I just noticed that's kind of interesting. Although she was the second victim found, or the first victim found, she's believed to be the second of the Gilgo Four to be killed. Do you remember when the Atlantic City, and I realize they've already stated there's no connection, but do you remember when they found the bodies, they stated that the first found was the last to be killed, I believe? The point is they can figure out the order. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And if you ever watch that show, is it Bones? I think it's called
Yes,
Bones.
yes, another good show.
So I have a friend who does that for a living. She analyzes bones, and she started out with trees and entomology, bugs and trees. She was explaining to me some very interesting forensics processes that I spoke with a couple of different forensic analysts for another case on, and they all confirmed it. And then I looked it up. I watched episodes of Dr. G where they actually do it, that autopsy show. A lot of people are skeptical about times and dates of when bodies go missing and when they're found and how they know. And while it's not similar to a lot of TV shows like SVU, it's important to point out when we're talking about forensic labs and stuff, some people will cry corruption or say like, how do you know this? Or, DNA could have been lost in this lab or cross-contaminated. You have to understand that once DNA goes off to be tested, it typically nowadays goes to one of 2 or 3 labs. Othram is one of the best ones. It's in North Texas, I believe. I used to go to school where it is tested, and it's very fascinating to me how they do the process. But you have to understand that these people who receive this DNA, much like when police I don't know if people know this, but when police interview you for a crime, the detective who is there on site when a crime has occurred to you, if you're a victim, they're not allowed to but interview you. They have to get another cop who knows nothing about the case, right? It's the same with DNA. If you have a lab working on DNA or working on any forensic analysis, the chances that that lab tech knows anyone from the department, slim to nil, especially if it's being sent to an FBI lab. Like when they say it's going to take 11 days, it's not because the process actually takes 11 days. It takes about a day, but you have to store it in a cool place and you have to transport it, and it can't be in the air because of pressure. It's got to be ground transport. There's a lot of different things going into it. So when I hear people say stuff like the DNA in this case was corrupt, I go, what lab did it? Because there are labs throughout the country that are smaller that are used by, for example, Houston PD had an issue where a bunch of rape kits went moldy because of hurricanes and Hurricane Harvey and stuff like that. Their storage facilities were not up to snuff. And because of that, a lot of cases are suffering. But then you have labs like Othram and Parabon, like they have high-tech, top-of-the-line stuff. And if the FBI is handling it, which they are now, they also are going to retest as much as possible, and they need so much less than they did back in the day. In 2003, I believe you would have needed like a cutout this big to have a profile done, and then it's destroyed. You can't use it anymore. Now you can take a cutout this big from a piece of blood on a shirt or a piece of a shirt with blood on it, and that can be split up 1,100 ways. Like, it's crazy how far DNA has come. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because people need to understand that when it comes to local corruption, especially whether it's Suffolk or San Antonio, it doesn't matter what the station is that you're talking about. If the FBI is involved and they're getting these labs, like the ones that have been mentioned in this case, these people don't know anything about, you know, the old cops or it's not a thing. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
There's a lot of TikTokers and a lot of people who are involved in the case, who are very close to it, do have good information, but they spread a lot of information that is just not really possible. Stuff like, oh, the FBI is in on this big coup. For what reason? You know,
Yeah,
and
there's a lot of
how?
conspiracy theories about this. Yeah.
You think the guy in Quantico really knows the Suffolk County Police Chief from 15 years ago who was in jail at the time that guy got out of college and started his forensics job? No. Like, it's
Yeah.
just silly. So there's some things that we need to remember with this. And when it comes to like cell phone technology, DNA testing, location data, they have a lot of this stuff. They have the capabilities to do all kinds of amazing things. But the stuff that we're looking at right here is stuff like street smart stuff. You know what I mean? Things that SWs and Johns share online, things that they don't really have specialists for, if you will. And
Right.
open source intelligence is all about taking that information and don't necessarily jump to conclusions with it, but kind of verifying it and seeing if there's the potential for a new lead that could be very useful, if that makes sense.
Yeah. All right. Let me just address some comments here because we're getting some comments. All right. Pee Wee Moore says Blaze was not Jessica's pimp. Her pimp was Khalil White. Jessica did not have a Blaze tattoo. I don't know if that's accurate or not. If you want to tell me how you know that, love to know.
Yeah, I'd love to get that
and
confirmed.
Then, yeah, Michelina Sereno says, yes, Jessica Taylor had a pimp, Khalil White. Right.
Mhm.
Okay. And somebody, I don't know who this is, but Naman Pratt. How many times will Melanie touch her hair this live? Any guesses?
Mine.
All right, wait. What's the over/under on
We're
this? You
both
guys have a
touching
pool
ours.
going? I'm always touching my hair. Do I do too much? What are you
By
saying?
the way, this is a comfort mechanism. I've read a lot about this. This is body language. This is what you do when you are trying not to screw up.
Oh, really?
Yeah, this is something that you do to be like,
I guess.
I'm very uncomfortable and I don't want to say the wrong thing. That's what people do. It's
wow,
very
I have
common.
to stop doing that because then people will think I'm insecure, which I'm absolutely 100%
it's not really
not.
insecure. It's being careful. So
right.
It's something more people should do, frankly. Everyone go touch your hair right now.
Everyone go touch your hair.
Everyone go flick of the hair so that you can calm down. But
let's see.
And what we're doing right now is live OSINT sleuthing, actually. We've just had someone say, no, that's BS, right?
Right.
We were just reading these notes going, is this so? We don't know. We don't want to report it as so.
That's right.
I got goosebumps earlier when I saw the Blaze thing, and that's why I said a minute ago, like, maybe she's getting them confused. So one part of OSINT is confirm that. You know, can we confirm that? Are you a relative?
Mhm.
Where did you get the information that she doesn't? Or are you just assuming that because the information isn't provided, or do you know her personally? And that's not to be offensive. I'm genuinely curious because this can put a lot to bed, you know?
Let's see. Sherry says the DNA on these older cases may have been destructed from the old way of using it. Things have come a long way now. And that's true, too. I think that's why a lot of these things are getting, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, solved now is because the technology is so much better.
But even that, I'd be careful because look at that. First of all, DNA can't really necessarily it can be destroyed by retesting it over and over again. But if you keep it in a refrigerator in the right spot in a lab for 10 years and you don't touch it, then it's not really destructed, is it? And we don't exactly know how much of what and what kind. Now, what we do know is on one case, there were fingernail clippings that had only been mentioned once. That was Rita.
Yes, Rita.
Her old case. Yeah, there were fingernail clippings. I only saw that in 2 articles on the whole internet. So having to trace that back and see if it is true, if you look up the appeals, they mention that. So we've got fingernail and just so that way DNA.
Catch people up. Rita Tangredi is one of the victims that John Bitrolf was convicted of murdering.
It is very hard to find information on him, by the way, and I want to let everyone know.
I know.
Yeah, you're not going to find it. And the reason why you're not going to find it, the only information you're going to find on him, legally speaking, is if you go to Judy Records. which I want everyone to write that down right now, JUDYrecords.org. And I showed it to you the other day, Melanie.
Yeah, that was a great resource.
It's amazing. Type in their name, and if you're looking up someone, look up their last name, comma, first name in or quotations, because it scans the internet much like Wayback Machine does, but for court records that are behind a county clerk wall, and it makes them available online. And it was started almost like as a justice project, because Pacer, for example, is the big website in Justia, but you need money for that. And
Yep.
a lot of people, including the guy who invented Reddit, they fought their whole lives like, we need public available information because poor people, poor people exist and they deserve to be able to find information on their cases. Just because you are underprivileged, low income, or cannot afford a good lawyer doesn't mean you don't deserve to have equal access as anybody else. So when Pacer's charging 1 to 10 cents a page, and then you've got paywalls out the wazoo, this site basically is a salvation for anybody that wants to learn about court records or have court records and has no money. Go to judyrecords.org. You can type in Bitteroff's name. You can type in anybody's name, even his brother's. You can find any court records available on him publicly are going to be there.
And it's nationwide.
Appeals. It's all appeals. If you see an appeal, the chance your FOIA request is going to get denied is 100%. Yep. So there are no, and you can go to the FOIA website. You can type in any name and see if anyone's ever FOIA requested that. And if it was granted, you can access that FOIA request right there without making a new one. Amazing.
There you go.
Right?
You just saved everybody a whole bunch of money. Just a quick shout out to Christy Atkinson. Thank you so much for the $4.99 super sticker. And also to Liz W. Thank you for the $1.99 super sticker. Thank you guys so much for keeping this chat moving. The chat is really kind of going crazy right now. So let's see. Where do you want to go from here, Kat?
I want to tell Lucy it is spelled Judy. JudyRecords.org. So it might be .com. Let me check. I think it's .org. But yeah, if you go to Judy Records, you can, it's .com. Sorry. It's judyrecords.com, spelled JUDYRECORDS. 720 million United States court cases. You can type in Heuermann's name. You can see anything on him or anybody else with that last name. You can type in any of our names. And if you were ever busted for, drinking or public intox, you could be in Judy Records.
Well, I think it's just court, decisions and stuff. I don't think
there's a lot of other stuff. Yeah, there's patents. If you ever filed for a patent.
To think that I've been going to every individual county clerk record website to get the records.
If you file for a patent, your divorce case will be up here. If you have a child custody case, it's up here. And that was the thing. It was shut down during COVID because it was in a lawsuit in Los Angeles County because they accidentally scraped off the internet a bunch of juvenile records that they forgot to redact the kids' names. So, see, this person is smart. Juvie records would be sealed. Yes, they would, but Juvie screwed up. So they had to fix that. They had to take them all out before they could put it back up. And it just came back online about a month or two ago.
And a lot of family court records are also sealed. So you may not be able to find those either. And, it depends on the state. Like I know in California, they're public. That's why we were able to get Costner's records.
Well, that's another thing. In Florida, everything's public. In Texas, everything was public until the pandemic, and then some laws changed.
Right.
Information I used to be able to get, I can only get before 2020 now in Texas. And then everything else is very pin thin. So you also have to look at state laws. But yeah, it's very, yes, I agree with Lucy. It does make victim advocacy way easier. And I wrote this in my notes, and I think it's important before I forget. And I'm going to try to make it quick because I do talk a lot, but there's a case that I was actually watching about. I'm not going to name it. I don't want to dox anyone, but there was a case about a woman who was murdered in a small town and her kids saw it. They found one of the kids covered in blood. It was very tragic. The father was a church going dude. He was out of town. Right. It was the 80s. So again, this is one of I love cold cases. So I'm let's go back and look and see what we can find. I have something that a cop once told me It wasn't Duty Ron, but I wish it was. I love it.
What
I
did
call
you say that
myself
you like?
Duty. I call myself
Duty
Duty
Cat?
Cat. My
She loves
boyfriend
Duty
came up with
Ron.
it.
I don't think
Yeah, I
Duty
love him
Ron's
so
in the house
much.
tonight. I haven't seen him, but
I'm like, I want to be Duty Ron's daughter. Okay, so sometimes the future can illuminate a person's past. Someone told me that once, and I was like, whoa, because what we were talking about in that moment was this case where everyone's like, this guy's such a good guy. There's no way he killed his wife. And he got away with it. Like, I guess he didn't do, nobody believed he did it. So there's no like, he got away with it. It's like he went on to live his life as a widow. This is so sad, right? There's another case in my hometown that was very similar to that. But then as the years go by and the cases go cold, someone's future can illuminate their past. What that means is at the time they might have had a clean record, right? There's no reason to suspect there's no violence in his past. He would never hurt his wife. Then 10 years in the future, you go look at Judy records and you see assault, attempted murder, attempted kidnap. Sometimes victims are the first victim. And people forget that.
There's got to be a first victim, right? There's always a first victim.
Just because a person hasn't been caught and seems to have a clean record doesn't mean that their future is going to be squeaky clean. Now, one could argue and say maybe losing his wife led to depression and put him down this road, and that's why he has all these DWIs. Fair enough. But if he choked a woman with a ligature and buried her under a school in concrete, a little different.
Yeah.
So sometimes, even though it's been 20 years since a case happened, you can see other suspects emerge a lot clearer based on how they go on to live their lives. If they go on to commit similar crimes to the first one they were accused of, but they got off of that because of a clean record, it really makes you want to go back and go, let's double check this.
That's what, Rex's attorney is saying about him. My client didn't do this. He's totally innocent. He's never been arrested before in his entire life. He doesn't have a record. He's got no criminal history. Therefore, we're supposed to believe that he didn't do anything wrong. And
hey, look, I've never been arrested for speeding, but I've sped like a lot.
Good point. Yeah, that's a good analogy. There you go.
I've never gone to jail for like doing like a hardcore bad drug or something, but I've been sitting in a car when a friend of mine got pulled over and she had a bad drug on her, and I was like, what the hell, you do that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if my name is in that report, that's forever tainted. You know what I mean?
So, right.
But then if in 20 years I don't do anything else, it's like, well, likely I didn't. You can kind of draw some conclusions from things.
Yep. Okie dokie says exactly, or what was their trigger to act on their uncontrolled impulses?
I do have a theory about him. I was telling you earlier. He's got like a lot of small claims court stuff going on.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of little mini liens, things like that. People want to comment on his house. He's an architect. Why doesn't he have a better house? The office building that he has an office in, that he has had since the 90s. I'm not going to do it because I already did it a long time ago and I forgot to take a screenshot. I'm so sorry, but you guys can do it. Go look up how much it costs to rent one office space in that building. Go look it up. Tell me you can afford that. I don't know most people who can.
What'd you find out?
A lot. Like, it had so many zeros. I'm like, what is that number? Like, how do you afford? Yes, to rent it, to lease an office space. And you can get like, it's just like, at least in Texas, it's residential here. Residential is very similar to, and I used to work in real estate for a long time. I've had a lot of jobs. So I can tell you this much. Residential and commercial leasing are very different. But one thing that's not different is the actual physical lease. Like, you can lease a place at a certain rate, but if they try to hike the rent, there's a chance you got to move, right? It seems that despite all the rent hikes, he kept that place. He loved that place. Now, one thing that fascinates me about some of these psychos is that they're creatures of habit. Sure, they can evolve and change, but if it works and they like it and there's history there, they're going to try to stick with something as long as they want. He's got his mom's house that he lived in since childhood. Right. To me, that's insane. Like, as a tip of the cuff millennial, it's like, how on earth?
And he didn't want to change it. He didn't want to fix it up.
No.
How much stuff did he not want to leave behind that he never wanted anybody else to take possession of that house? I can't wait to see what they found there. I mean,
I was fascinated by
treasure trove of stuff.
I looked up all the records. The cost of it, I think he paid like $140,000 in like 1994.
Yeah.
And then you look up
what's the Zestimate now on that house?
That house is just
$600 to
$800
$800
is probably worth way more. And he kept that house on it, which I think, I don't know how it works there, but in Texas, that can change the value, like the assessment of it. You know, here people can come up to your property from the city and be like, you need to fix that or we're going to break it down. I don't know how it is in New York.
Yeah, no.
But this guy, like, and here we have eminent domain issues on the border, which is it's a huge issue. You've got people who've owned land their whole lives. It's been in their family for 8 generations. And
Yeah.
now they're like, we're going to take it to build this wall that people can easily just climb over, and you have to deal with it and move out. And you're getting 1% of what your home is worth. And if you don't do that, we'll take you to court. We'll take it anyway. Um, you can literally lose your home because you don't mow your lawn here. Like, it's so fleeting. The fact that he held on to this property and he stayed in the same office building, there's history there. And I was showing you how his IP address pings earlier, which I can't show here. That's doxing. But
Right.
there's websites you can
But you
use
can explain it. You can say like where his IP address is ping. You can just tell us.
Okay, so there's these websites, like for example, Spokio is one of them. It's not nearly as reliable as a couple others. There's That's Them. That's Them, I believe, will straight up give all the IP addresses for a person. There's a couple others I'm not going to name because I don't want to dox the company, but I could tell you that there are plenty of legal resources and ways to get IP addresses from someone with a simple search. You take that IP address and you look at the data. Let's say Spokio and a couple of these companies, they look at the data and they go, okay, let's trace how many times we see this IP address in our data. And we bought data from Facebook and we bought data from Twitter, and we have a contract with White Pages. So all that data gets pooled into one server, and imagine millions of people and all their data is there. And you can take one person and it can use a code to literally say, okay, according to this, these 30 times your IP pinged in this city at this location. And then it pinged 150 times at this location and 300 times at this location. And these are the dates it pinged. It's going to take the top 3 to 5, and it's going to create a map on its own using code. And it's going to show you little lines going to that map. And if you go to Spokio and look anyone up right now with a premium account, you can see those. And people always go, well, where do they get those? Or that information could be wrong. It could be wrong if they're connecting it using a wrong email address. Now, if you go to Rex's profile, it has his correct email address and his family's. And I'm not saying this is just on Spokio. This is all sorts of sites. I'm not even suggesting you do this. I did it for you so you don't have to pay.
That's right. Don't do it.
Basically, he spent the most time digitally, according to his, and again, these aren't burner phones, though. This is according to the one phone number that I searched for him under, which was his official phone number, his cell phone, not his burner, the one he used for his family. That one, it pinged in 3 places. It was, Freeport, Massapequa, and then the place over to the bottom left of that. So it's like a triangle. And it gives you the exact dates. It says like 2009, 2002, this. So you can look and go, okay, this person was here, on these dates. They were around this area. This is an area where they frequent. That is terrifying, that anybody can access that.
Tell the people who are listening what they're giving up when they just join Facebook.
When you join Facebook, honestly, the one that I'm the most scared of is TikTok. I have a couple of TikToks. You will never see me post on it. I just troll. I just watch everybody. TikTok, and the reason, by the way, is because I put it on an old phone I had that connects. I only connected to the wireless at a coffee shop nearby because I'm like, and my boyfriend thinks I'm insane, but I'm like, no, because if you read the agreement, first of all, TikTok, it's a foreign app, and in the country it was created in, full communist power. We own everything, and you can use our app if you agree to give us everything. Over there, it's like, well, I'm already giving you everything. I have no freedom. So here, take it. In America, we want to get on the next big thing. So we went, okay, yeah, let me get my TikTok. And then you download it. TikTok has access to everything. They can turn on and off your camera. They can take and keep and store all your passwords, and then they can sell it. There have been accusations of the Chinese government spying on Americans and stuff, and Russia spying through apps. That's been going on since the 80s. If you watch a show called The Americans, and I know people right now are going, there weren't apps in the 80s. No, they did it in other ways, like cameras. if you bought a pixel camera or one of those little, you know what I'm talking about, when they first had the digital cameras that
Yeah.
you could see the screen on. I remember the first time those came out, I was like,
Mhm.
wow, this is amazing. So the Russians were using pictures of flowers that were uploaded from those cameras and digitally encrypting and hiding spy code in them. And then that spy code was printed out and given out to spies here in America, who were later rounded up by the FBI guy who was involved in all the Trump stuff, who got fired. Like, that guy found a lot of these codes and said, whoa, they're putting these in flower pictures that they took of a calendar. How did they do that? That's a perfect example of like encrypting something. You're hiding it. So TikTok will hide little nuggets in your phone that will basically, I say nuggets, I don't know how to exactly explain it, but it will take little traps and it'll take information from your phone. It doesn't take a little, it takes like all of it in little clusters. So if you leave your house and go somewhere, it now knows that you went there. So that IP address might get logged in the middle of you making a call. And then one day you might look yourself up on one of these websites. And let's say you, okay, this is a perfect example. Let's say you go to California once, you go to San Diego, you've never been there before, you only went there one time. You log into a Starbucks, you log into their Wi-Fi using your phone, right? Then you come back the next day. You never visit again. 5 years later, you happen to look yourself up on Spokeo, White Pages, That's Them, Catfish, Radarist, and you see might reside in San Diego. What the hell? You know what I mean? Like, how?
Right.
I only went there once. Well, it collected your ping, either your TikTok, your Facebook, your Twitter. One of those collected that ping and they sold it to that site. And those sites have contracts with every major social media entity.
So I should delete my TikTok right now, is what you're saying.
Well, I mean, there's no point. They already have it all.
I mean,
you know?
it's already gone. But
and I've always been of the mind, yeah, hack me by all means, make my credit better. It's not good. Like, go fit. The best thing that could happen to me is a hacker comes in and fixes my credit history. You know,
like, well, it always cracks me up when people fall into the trap of these, you know, things on Facebook like, today is Daughter's Day, so I'm going to post a picture of my daughter, or I'm going to post a picture of my son. It's like this made up shit. And people are now giving information of photographs of their children. Sorry, I asked you not to, but I don't like cursy words. No, sorry.
No, I get to say an SH once.
Right? Isn't that not a good thing to do?
You made a good point, by the way. You just said posting a picture of your daughter. There's a woman, I saw her on TikTok actually when I was trolling. I'll also use my boyfriend's phone and go look at it. There's a woman who used to work in FBI child sex trafficking. She was an advocate. I love her TikTok. She's the first person I've ever heard point out, ever, publicly, this one thing that I've been trying to drill into my friends for forever. Okay, you know how people, it'll show like someone's friends list when you look someone up on Facebook? Mm-hmm. Okay, that algorithm used to exist in a way where if someone visited your profile X amount of times, they're going to be, or no, whichever friend you interact with most is going to be in your top whatever. And then you could, kind of like your top 5 on T-Mobile, you could like move it around, right? Well, prior versions of the app, the algorithm was different. You know, sometimes it would pick it out for you. Sometimes it was the person you were communicating with the most on Messenger. Sometimes it's the person whose profile you viewed the most. The most recent update is when you get a friend suggestion, or you know how it pops up and says, you know, people here's some friends you could add. In order to be suggested to you, that person has to have visited your profile 3 times. If you're a child,
your stalker's on pretty easily.
Mm-hmm. If you're a child, if you're 14, if your kid has that, and you see 3 adult men suggested to them, that means 3 adult men looked at your kid's profile. That's something important to think about. Yeah. Look at the suggestions before anything else, and then determine, is this where I want my kid to be? You know, like really, like, and I'm not trying to ruin this for kids. Like, I had Facebook really young. I was in my 20s, but still, like, you know, the internet is a creepy place. Here's another thing that I wish people, I do wish someone would put a deposit in my bank account.
Yeah, can somebody please deposit money in my bank account too?
I was talking to a woman a while back. I get a lot of people who hit me up asking if I could help them with cheating situations. Like, I want to know if my boyfriend's cheating.
Oh,
And it's
really?
like,
To stalk their spouse and see if
mm-hmm.
their spouse is, oh,
And in
interesting.
Texas, it's illegal to be a private investigator and charge money if you're not licensed. And that's what I'm going to school for. But because I'm not licensed yet, I don't charge people, and I typically only help with missing persons that are like, I'm looking for my bio dad or my mom, or like adoption cases for
Yeah,
my
we're getting
friends
off
I've helped
track.
with. Yeah, we are. But I can tell you this much with stuff like, I totally lost my train of thought right there.
Yeah, people are going to contact you now and want you to work for free. So
Oh yeah,
don't
yeah.
do that.
I just remember, but I had a friend. She had hit me up and said, like, I want to know if my boyfriend's cheating, and I was like, okay, fine, let's just, because 90% of private investigators, that's what they deal with. And I was doing this for free. So I'm like, fine, just tell me a little about him. First thing she told me was he has a Kick profile. He's in his 30s. Most of us, do you know what Kick is?
No.
So you heard it and you were probably thinking, what's Kick? It's just an app. He has a profile on Kick. What's that? You know, a lot of people don't realize if you're an adult and you have a Kick profile, there's something wrong with you.
I thought you said a kid profile. Like he had a profile where he was impersonating a kid.
It is for children. It is an app specifically for tweens. And it is
right.
marketed
so he's,
as that.
A pedo, maybe.
There's something up there. I mean, a lot of younger sex workers use it. So if you have an adult husband who has a Kick profile, divorce him now. There's a problem.
Okay. That's excellent information. If you find Kick on your spouse's phone, say goodbye. All right, let's
go
back to, where are we going back to? Melissa Barthélemy? Okay,
so yeah.
Now let's go back to Melissa Barthélemy, and we were talking about that she used the aliases Chloe and Very Sexy Chloe. So what can you find using Wayback?
You know what's interesting? You don't even have to use Wayback for some of these, but you can basically go, there's these things. This is where we're going to talk about rip-off reports. Rip-off reports are a subculture where basically there's these forums we talked about in the last live where it's John's reviewing escorts. There's some that also advertise for services, and there's some that are just forums. There's Escort Alligator, there's Utopia Guide, there's USA Sex Network. There's all these different ones. There's one called Big Doggy. Like I said, some of them, they're places to post and like ads, and then there's places to speak to other people and maybe hook up like adult friend finder style. But then almost all of them have this forum, and in this forum you can find things like Twitch is safe, don't worry, Tiff. If you go through these forums, you can find things like a night out girlfriend experience, and it's a whole thread where you click on it and it's all these Johns saying this girl gives a good girlfriend experience, which is when a sex worker doesn't even, sometimes they don't even have sex, they cook you dinner and they take you to a movie and they're like, you're my boyfriend, I love you, and they pay for that. They just want to have that experience. And then there's some that will pay for, like, you know, these are people who are, you know, trans, and if you want a trans person, these are the best ones. Yes, bad date reports. There's different services. Oh, hi, Tina. There's different services where basically you can go in and you can review that specific service. You can review femdom stuff. You can review just basic like escorts. What's fascinating is you go into these forums and you see various dynamics between both Johns and escorts. Like there's some of them where if the escort comes in and gives her 2 cents, everybody jumps on her. Get out of here. This is for us. The Johns call themselves hobbyists, which someone pointed out in the last live. That's what they call themselves. They have nicknames and lingo, just like,
that's creepy.
Yeah, just like 4chan does. They have different lingo for things. There was an old website called The Dirty where it's just people putting each other on blast. Like, this guy will rob you and give you an STD, but they also have his picture, his name, like everything. That got taken down due to lawsuits, but you can go on Wayback Machine. There are cops right now that operate and have jobs. There are politicians. There are teachers. There are people on there who are on there for doing awful things with their picture and the evidence that they did it. And they're just put on blast for the public, and those have since been taken down. But you can go type in The Dirty on Wayback Machine, and you can see old reports and you can do a keyword search. You can do the same on the escort sites. So one of the things I did first when I watched Amber Costello's roommate's interview, he said the thing about how he made mention in this. It's a YouTube interview where he's like sitting at a diner table and he talks about how people were onto them. He said that they were running the scam and they were quitting running the scam because people had complained about them. And I think he said in online forums. I remember there was a reason I was like, oh, shoot. So this should be online somewhere.
Right.
And in it, he talked about how, like, there was a guy complaining about it. Other people were going to be aware. It was getting around town. So they were going to have to quit running the scam or it would put Amber's safety at risk, essentially, was the gist of it. So I looked at the date that Amber went missing. And he said that they'd been running the scam for a short time. So I looked at the year before the date she went missing. And again, there are so many of these forums, and you can go back and see how far they go. And if they go back to that date, you're fine. If not, you can run it through the Wayback Machine. And you get to that date and you start reading a section called rip-off reports. In other ones, it will just be in a regular forum. So you kind of got to sift through. Some of them, it'll be like who to watch out for, or, you know, lazy girls. They have different like nicknames for them. And you go through and you can type in CTRLF after you've loaded the whole forum, and you can isolate certain keywords, search for them, or you can just go to the advanced search function and you can type in a keyword. So if her aliases are listed on this site we were just looking at, you can type that in and see if anyone mentions this specific SW's name, and if they do, what they had to say about her. You can also take other key things that you might notice. For example, if you have a victim who's 6'3", that's really tall for a woman, right? So I would probably go into one of these forums and type in 6'3" woman and see if anybody writes about a woman that's 6'3". So imagine the possibilities. And yeah, it is hard. I see some people saying it's gross. Like, you see a lot of things you don't want to see.
Yeah, we were looking at it earlier, and I will say that
Explicit.
Kat wanted to was thinking about screen sharing, and as I was looking and reading what was on there, I said, "There's no way that we can screen share this. We'll get shut down. We'll get arrested. You don't even want that like history on your browser. That's how disgusting some of this stuff is.
It's really gross, and my poor boyfriend will walk by like, "What are you looking at?" I'm like, "Dude, just don't." And it's like it really does kind of take its toll on you. Makes things not so fun or sexy anymore. You know, like things that you see on there can really be disturbing. So with a trigger warning, you know, don't do this if you have what's the word? If you have a weak stomach. Just, there's some things that are really upsetting and hard to see. But anyway, I went through there, and rip-off reports, you can isolate down to an area. You can isolate them down to Long Island. You can isolate them down to Massapequa. On some forums, you can isolate them just down to the state. But you start to see trends. And these guys very much would call out a scam. And I found scams involving a girl named Chloe. It didn't exactly match the dates that Melissa was missing. So I don't think they're actually talking about her. I do believe they're talking about another escort named Jules, which is her street name. They don't use their real names. What helps us with the Gilgo website is they listed all of their working names. So you can take their working names, you can run them through these Hall of Fames, which are the really old forums.
Hall of Fame. Oh my God, that makes it sound
that's
like
the one I showed you earlier.
Or something. Yeah,
it's disgusting, and it's from 2002. Remember? So those are just reports from 2002 to 2009. They get archived, and like I was telling you earlier, the cops will shut this stuff down just like they did Backpage. But when they do, these sites pop back up, and they just change from .com, it becomes .pl, then .nl, then .cl, and just like a torrent website, they can literally just keep rebooting all that old history, and they just constantly save it. So it's not gone forever, and you can run it through Wayback and pop it up just as easy. So I did find some where people were complaining about a very similar scam being ran in Long Island around that time.
Well, hang on for 1 second, because that's Amberlynn Costello. So we're going to go to her next. So give me just 1 second. All right. Thank you to Tony for the super chat. Good show, girls. Keep up the nice work you were doing. Thanks, Tony.
Thank you.
All right. So let's just share this, the Amberlynn Costello bio for a second, and we'll talk about this. So Amberlynn Costello was 27 years old and lived at 1112 America Avenue in West Babylon when she was last seen by acquaintances. I'm not doxing her because this is on the Suffolk County Gilgo News website. So now if people are going to go drive by this house and knock on the door, it's not because we doxed her. It's right there. Costello was a heroin addict who lived at the house with another female and 2 men who were also heroin addicts. Again, not something that I would mention specifically, but it's right there in the website. Costello, who was 4 feet 11 inches tall and was a SW who advertised on Craigslist and Backpage to support her and her roommate's heroin addiction. Costello used the names Carolina or Mia and had tattoos of Chaos, K-A-O-S, on her neck, a butterfly on her lower back, and the word Margaret, M-A-R-G-E-R-E-T, on her leg. So
I thought Margaret was spelled differently.
I did too. That's why I spelled it out. So that's the way it was spelled. Margaret, maybe.
That's actually really great. Honestly, when I see something slightly misspelled, it's like, that's perfect, especially if you're a victim. Like, that's a good thing actually for her, because a misspelled tattoo is kind of a jackpot for trying to ID a body. I mean, that's pretty much the only good thing about that. But it's very unique too, because I mean, you could possibly search that. They don't really go into detail as much about tattoos. I don't know how much you get out of that one, but
what about
Carolina
using her name?
You can, boom. Yeah, you could definitely go through. There are multiple mentions of Carolinas and Mias on multiple forums. What I've been doing, and this is where you come in, the listeners. I realized after starting this endeavor, after seeing that interview, and it was before Rex got popped, but he actually got popped pretty quick after. So I'm still kind of in the middle of a lot of this, but I started collecting all the Carolinas and Mias I saw mentioned in forums and saving them on a Google Doc. So I can go back later, and the goal is just collect where they are, get the screenshots, and then work your way down and identify which ones are actually her. For example, if I see a Carolina or a Mia from 2016, what's the point? Like, she wasn't around. It's got to be that date and before. So
we were talking about the scam or the ruse, right? So if you see any postings with those names and she's going to scam you and take your money because her jealous boyfriend's going to come in the room.
On the ripoff report specifically, that would be the first place to start. And then I would broaden it. Anywhere where you see complaints. There's a guy named Flint. So it's like Michael Flint. I don't even care about doxing this fool. There's people on those forums, the Johns. I'll tell you all their names. They're pieces of crap. But these dudes will they'll say horrible things about these women. And there's one guy named Flint who gets so mad at a woman named Chloe that he posts on 7 different message boards about how she was a little fat and had acne and he didn't expect that. And he just destroys her. Like, he just talks all kinds of crap to try to ruin her business. Well, then she comes in. And I'm not going to get too much into it, but it ended up being like 10 pages of this back and forth. And it's this deep hypothetical argument between the Johns where, what if this happened to you and this woman showed up and did this? What's your response? And it did seem like a scam, like she was pretending to be multiple people. This is different. You know what I mean? This is totally different scam. So those, and then you see the date that it was going on. Amber would have been on rehab on one of those posts. So boom, we can take that one out. But it is fascinating how this one guy, he writes in 6 different forums, but he uses the same screen name or a variation of it. So now we can take that guy, and he even said, he gives his phone number in one of them. And then he says, I live in Massapequa. So what am I going to do as a nosy person? I'm going to go Google that phone number. And if nothing pops up, I'm going to start running it through this old software. Well, I found
he lives in Massapequa too?
Yeah, he lives in North. It's actually not Massapequa.
In the water in Massapequa.
It's actually a little north of it. So he lives in this, I think it's called Maryville or something. He lives in this one specific area that is just above Massapequa. And you see this guy, and he's talking at one point about how his wife would kill him. if he's like, my wife would kill me and she's out here outing guys, that's not cool. And it's like, oh my God. And then you see a guy who's, one guy mentions that he's an architect, and I honed in on him. It was not Rex. But there are guys in there that drop so much personal information because they think no one's looking. And they'll put their own phone number. All you do is look it up and you find out this guy has a wife and 8 kids. This guy's a cop. This guy's a judge. Like, the people in this form, and you can verify it, they've had this phone number for 15 years. It's on 8 sites. It's their personal work phone number.
How stupid are they? How stupid are they to think that they're not going to get caught? I don't understand the ridiculousness of that.
And a lot of people go, oh, well, there's no way there's going to be this kind of information if she went missing. This one girl went missing in 2003. It goes back to 98 on some of these forums. It's crazy. And here's another thing.
Wow.
They're heavily moderated, and only the moderator can delete on a lot of these.
So, interesting.
And it's not dark web. It's all regular web. And if you really, I mean, it's not really going to help much. You could incognito it if you just don't want it to save the browser history, but even that's still available. So it's kind of pointless. I would say just, I mean, I wouldn't even mess with a VPN. It doesn't really matter at that point. I would just have a really good, virus protection or something installed, and then you'll be fine. But going through these forums, isolating the names, isolating the ones that you've isolated down by date, and then looking at behavior. If the woman has blonde hair and it's curly, and your victim has brown hair and it's straight, take her out. You know what I mean? But even then, I'm about to second guess myself. One thing I learned about SWs is so I had a friend who worked in Detroit and got involved in this a long time ago in the 90s. She told me that they have a hotel room they set up for the night. And I did confirm this recently with a couple other SWs I talked to. They have a bag of wigs, a lot of them. And if you want a blonde girl, a brunette, it doesn't matter. You're still getting them. They're just going to pop a wig on.
Wow.
So some of these wigs nowadays are so good. And even back in like the mid 2000s, they look so real. You also have to be careful about weeding out, because what if she was wearing a wig? If she has a matching tattoo and everything else is the same, and he happens to mention that, but blonde hair, I wouldn't necessarily dip it out. I mean, I dyed my hair blonde once for 2 days and it looked so horrible, I changed it. But
right, exactly. We change our hair color a lot. We do. We absolutely do. All right. So back to Amber Costello. Is there anything else that you wanted to dive into here?
I think it's interesting she did in-calls at her home. That's something I would also note.
Yes.
If you go into these forums and you type in calls under the Long Island or Massapequa or Babylon, I would put Babylon. If you just type in calls, you can see a list of everybody discussing girls who do in-calls. Now you've isolated it down to about 2,000 posts, you know?
Wow.
Then you take those in-calls and then see how it has Mia and Carolina.
Yeah.
I would also do versions of that. I would misspell Mia and misspell Carolina and then do the regular versions. And I would probably do each one about 3 times, 3 different searches, because Johns are very stupid. They spell bad. Sometimes a Carolina might have an E in it, and then you've missed a whole post that could have been her. But I think in calls, I like to go through these and take out keywords. You know, some girls don't do in calls. It's not safe. They don't want the car
I can't imagine.
Yeah, and then right here, look.
I mean, if we're going to talk about the safest place, what's the safest place? You know, to go to. You know, the interesting thing about, well, it wasn't Amber. It was Megan Waterman. The last known video of her was leaving a Holiday Inn in Hauppauge, New York, which is also.
But also, how odd is that? She left it.
Right.
Usually, if
she
you're
was
getting
walking
a room,
out with a suitcase. Yeah.
You stay. You know what I mean? Honestly, there's no safe way to do this job.
Yeah.
But I would say the same about Uber. You know, think about it. They just had an Uber driver killed a few weeks ago in Florida. He just walked up, knocked on the door. Here's your food. Boom, slaughtered. Guy cut his head off with like a katana or something. It was insane. And I've driven that stuff part-time for Uber Eats, like in the past when I needed money and I was just running short because the economy, right?
Mm-hmm.
That to me is terrifying. Can you imagine delivering other goods and services? Like that is so freaking scary to me. And there's just no good way to do it, except I would say, okay, so this is controversial. I'm gonna tell you this much. And if you look on Long Island news, I'll post a link later on in the
I'll let you
chat.
go solo for this. Go for it.
I have a creeps list, and it's all the people that I went through and found who have attempted to murder sex workers, who have kidnapped sex workers, who have locked them in dungeons, who have tried to, one, he drugged her and dumped her on Oak Beach. Anybody who has done anything like that in this neighborhood where Gilgo is happening in the last 30 years. And I've compiled those together, and I've sat there and I've stared at them, and it is amazing. Like, people find it really hard to believe that there could be 3 or 4 serial killers in Long Island. There have already been about 9. And you might be
that's
like,
insane to me. I know, and this is interesting too. Don't lose your train of thought, because you and I, we both do that. We lose our train of thought. But, I've been saying all along, like, how crazy would it be if there's 2 serial killers dumping
There's already been 2
remains in the same exact location on Gilgo Beach? It's got to all be the same guy, and he's evolved his methods.
There's actually already been
because I live
3
here
in that location.
Yes,
that's crazy. Like,
and you said to me, there's already not. We already have
there's
9
on the beach. There's 3 in that location, and we're talking 70s to now. And we've got, I mean, you can say Rifkin, you could say Bitteroff, you could throw all these in. I have a couple. Where is my list? It doesn't matter. There's a couple. There's a guy named like Rodeo or something. He had a sex dungeon. He locked 2 sex workers in his parents' house, and he went to jail. This was like a year or 2 ago. There, he drugged a girl and dumped her in. That's the girl escaping a man's basement. There was 2 of them. One guy drugged her and dumped her in Oak Beach, hoping she would die, and he did try to choke her. And then there was another guy who had 2 of them. He was driving them out to an isolated area in Oak Beach to supposedly kidnap, torture, and kill them. And they jumped out of the car and rolled and got away. He's in jail. Sayville Motel, same. Those owners were taking money from the SWs and from the Johns to operate out of rooms. That's back to my point. The really only safe thing is to build a rapport with someone at a hotel who's working there and kind of pay them to watch out for you. Or in their eyes, a lot of SWs have a pimp, have a driver. That's the point.
Yeah, well, what good was Michael Pack when he left her there alone? Well, what the hell is that about? Shannon Gilbert, what the hell? All right, we'll talk about that later. But in a second, Scott
at some point, you got to be like, not my problem. And that's what they did. It's sad.
Scott says that's because it's desolate at night and no lighting. Yeah, anybody who lives around Long Island or has ever driven on Ocean Parkway knows there is absolutely 0 streetlights on Ocean Parkway. It is one of the most dark, desolate places at night with water on either side.
And also,
it's a very skinny road. What's that? Why are there no?
Why? Because like
streetlights.
Yeah, is it historical preserve or?
They just. I don't think it's traveled enough to deserve street lighting.
I mean, I feel like it bizarre. Is now. And also when you go on Google Maps and you look at it and you go back as far as you possibly can, there are a number of avalanches. I'm not trying to throw any thoughts out there that are too crazy, but yeah, I saw I'm like, oh, there's Chevy Avalanche, like they're just going up and down the road, different colors, different kinds. Like, I don't know if it's a popular vehicle there or not.
I don't even know that I've even heard of it until this case.
Oh, well, I mean, I have, because I have an ex who used to drive one. They're a piece of crap cars, but I'll tell you this much, or trucks, but I'll tell you this much. It's so strange to me that there were so many just on Google Maps alone. They were the wrong color. You know what I mean? But I remember thinking, like, how can they not isolate it down to the avalanche based on the roommate's testimony a long time ago? His interviews, he was very vocal about it. I think I said that the last stream.
Yeah, it was in the file. It was in the file, and it got buried, and and
it occurred to me, maybe it's because it looks like a lot of people, maybe there was an avalanche sale going on in New York. I don't know what was going on, but maybe it's compact enough to park. I don't know why, but I happen to see a lot of them on the Google Maps. It's kind of surprising.
I think the bed of that truck with the cap on it or the cover or whatever he had would perfectly fit somebody who's 4'10" in the back. I don't know. Just
also,
saying,
how wild is it? He gave that thing to his brother. How rude.
It's like, hey, here, you take it. I don't want it. Like,
if you get pulled over and accused of murders, my bad. Like, how are you going to give that to your own brother? He must hate his brother. But also the mother lived with the brother, right? Part of me wonders if that's like a screw you to the brother, because he has mother issues. I think he really overly loves his mother, like you were saying. It was you made a really good point that I at first was like a little, I don't know, but then I thought about it and read more on it, and I think you're right about the incestual.
The whole emotional incest thing, like the Roberta Laundrie, Brian Laundrie letter
Boom.
that she wrote
Yes.
him. And it was like how like the mother's kind of substitutes the son for the spouse. Like that was a real creepy letter that she wrote.
And Rudy
That is no
Farias.
letter that a mother should ever write a son. And
Yeah.
when your father dies when you're 11, which is what happened with Rex, and
Mm-hmm.
I think he was the oldest. I don't know. I've did you find out if he had any sisters? Because I heard that he had a sister, but there's not a lot of mention. I know he had a brother that was 2 years younger.
I found a brother. I thought I had a sister, but it might have actually been like an aunt. There's his family tree is pretty small. I know that Asa's sister lives in Alaska. What's interesting is he has a lot of pings in Alaska. And I thought that was odd. And then it occurred to me, oh, well, if he's a hunter. And then I started thinking about the serial killer in Alaska who would hunt women. And I'm like, why aren't they looking there? You know what I mean? Like they've mentioned looking at Vegas and other places. If he really was ever visiting the sister in Alaska, his wife's sister, I think that's a really good place because there's a huge trafficking populace there. Alaska, Miami, Salt Lake, Houston, huge
Yeah, you did say
hubs.
that his IP address was found a lot in Alaska, right? Or
Mhm.
you found that out. Hang on to
Yeah.
that for one second. Roger still says Rodney Harrison said they only had one person on the Gilgo case for a while. Yeah, for like 10 years or more. And in fact, he also said, and that officer would also catch, or that detective would also catch other cases. So it wasn't like they were 100% dedicated to Gilgo case all the time.
So this is something I want to speak on real quick. I'll make this fast. Cold case departments in every police department across the US, they're screwed. They're just screwed. There's not a single one I can think of that has the upper hand or a fair deal. If you are a cop and you get put on cold cases, you're underpaid, you're underprepared, you're overworked. It's like being a foster care caseworker, in my opinion.
Wow.
I've met a lot of cold case detectives who, in Austin, we've got 3 of them working on over 300 cases. Like, it's insane. The yogurt shop murders is like their biggest focus, but there are so many missing women here who are SWs. And, you know, everybody's spreading this rumor about a serial killer, and it's got the same issue that Oak Beach does. There's no lights. It's along water. Dudes go out to pee and they fall in, hit their head, go into a coma, die. And everybody's going, it's a serial killer. It's like, no, you've got a huge drinking district right next to a lake with a big bridge where people drink, they got to go pee, they fall in. This keeps happening. And they check the toxicology, they do the reports, they know what's going on, but they don't put lights up and they don't put cameras up. It's infrastructure. If they're not going to dedicate a couple of bucks for a cold case detective to send off DNA, they're not going to build cameras. They're not going to go put up lights unless the public makes a huge deal out of a huge stink. So I always say, I understand that there's different arguments about police budgets and stuff and defunding. I'm not talking about that. It doesn't matter what department you are. If you are a cold case detective, you do not have the funds, because the amount we pay for medical care in this country, imagine paying for a lab test for DNA. It's very expensive.
Very
it's not
expensive.
23andMe.
But also we need to point out that there was also a lot of corruption in Suffolk County.
Nobody
wanted to look into this case. And Tom Spota didn't even go to jail until like, what, 2017, 2019? So
much
there were
corruption.
a lot of other reasons other than budgetary that this did not get looked into.
But also look at the amount of cold cases there. It's insane. And people want to say, oh, this is a small area. How can this be? New York, I come from a place where your nearest neighbor is a couple of miles away. New York, people are up your butt 24/7. You cannot fart without offending 10 people. It is crazy. That beach is probably the most isolated part of New York, and it's got millions of people there.
You are wrong. I did a drive when I was driving out to court in Suffolk County the other day. It is very desolate in a lot of places in Suffolk County. There's a lot of farmland. The further east you go, and it can be very isolated. Let me just go quickly to Lori. Thank you so much for the $10 super chat. Could Shannon have ran into Rex H while he was dumping and she was panicked or in a drug psychosis?
We were just talking about that the other day.
We were just talking about that. And my original thought was that she perhaps ran out onto Ocean Parkway because it is the major roadway. And after her driver left her, what choice did she have but try to get back to New Jersey? Mm-hmm. And if she ran out to the roadway and he was visiting the dump sites of his victims, perhaps she could have come across his path.
Was it November when she was?
Let me go back to my notes.
The
I
one
think it
thing that
was
I keep
in the
sticking to is he's a summer killer. That's the one thing. Unless we see other proof, it seems that he's a summer killer, and it seems to be when Asa's gone. So when you look
right
at
whenever she's gone. Yeah.
yeah, so I wonder if he goes back to visit in between those times. Like people say resting period, I think that's silly. I really think it all whittles down to convenience. Can they or can't they? Because think about it, to them, all the profiles say it's very much like an addiction, a compulsion. They can't control it. They have to do it, right? What does
Mm-hmm.
that sound like to you? It sounds like drugs and alcohol to me. You know what I
Addiction. Yeah.
mean?
Addiction.
So if someone's offering you free meth and you're a meth head, probably going to do it if it's convenient. If you see someone that you want to kill and you're a serial killer and it's convenient, you can get away with it, you think they just hold back? No, it's my cooling off period. No. I
Right.
think that it's literally can I or can't I? And I would say, can he get away with that in November? What was he doing? Where was
No,
Thanksgiving that
it
year?
was May. She went missing May
It was May.
1st of 2010. Wait a second. Megan Waterman goes missing June 6th of 2010.
May, June, July. Yeah, it's all.
Amber Costello goes missing September 2nd of 2010.
Also
So it's
wonder if he
May, June,
pre-plots.
September.
Do you ever think about that? He's very prepared. He's an architect. Architects are all about like getting outlines, figuring out building
Organizing,
codes, organizing,
blueprints.
preparing. I do wonder if he went out there to pick his dump site before he even murdered or had a girl to murder.
You
Maybe
do
he
not
was
have
out there scoping it.
a YouTube channel, do you?
I did for comedy. I changed it, and
right,
then
you're
I
also a
took it
stand-up
down
comedian.
for
Tell
my
everyone
yeah.
that.
I do stand up. I was about to record a special, so I took everything down so that I wouldn't lose any material. And I started a new one under this handle. And I have 2 podcasts that I'm working on about 2 cold cases in Texas that should be out soon, but they might not be out depending on how they go. Just because if there's information that could help a case, and I don't want to make a whole podcast and put that information out there if it can help a case, and then I put it out and that hinders it in court. It's another reason why I love having you, a lawyer, to talk to, because I do think lawyers' perspectives are so important, because you can guide people on, hey, don't screw this up for them in court. Like if we really want this guy, this killer, caught, and you have information that could help the prosecution, and you blast it on YouTube at the wrong time, could that corrupt it in court? It's good to have a lawyer to tell us.
And that's why you can be my special guest. Thank you, Annika, for the super sticker. I appreciate you. I love that beautiful magazine cover photo that you have there. Gorgeous.
But yeah, you can just go to my channel if you want and add me. And then when I do have stuff to put out, I'll put it out. I'm working on like a little thing where I just kind of want to teach people how to do OSINT stuff for good. And I have an SW friend that we'd like to start a snitch for him. We have no plans necessarily to exactly where it's going to be, but I think there needs to be an outlet for SWs to snitch.
Yeah.
Where they can call in anonymously and snitch on people. I love that idea. Most people are like, snitches get stitches. No, stitches aren't that bad. They come out later. So what? Like, snitch, by all means. I'm sick of seeing people murder women.
Okie dokie says, that's a great idea. Okie dokie says, you are a bright light on a dark topic. Well done. Yes, the DA refused the FBI help on the Gilgo case. Yes, that back in 2010. You are correct about that. That was Tom
That's the most
Spoda
disgusting thing about this case. Is that they denied help.
Auntie Ree says that area has very wealthy homeowners. They fight not to have streetlights in their neighborhoods.
Oh, so they prefer dead women. Fair enough.
Oh my
God. I don't get the logic in that. I don't want a light shining through my window. Okay, well, you want bones in your yard? What's wrong with you?
Right. Sometimes, Anne Vroom says, sometimes environmentalists object to lighting natural habitats like Gilgo Beach as disruptive of species patterns.
Again, I say, do you want the species feasting on human bones? Like, I don't understand what the alternative is. Like how that is. I want good lighting and nice flowers. Okay, well, I don't want 11 women dead. You know, at some point, people have to acknowledge this is a problem and things can be done and nip it in the bud, and they're not.
Tell what do you think about what Iris has to say? News Nation recently did more than 750.
In Austin, there's like 30, and that's just from the past 10 years. Like, and we're a small city, so like, I know in Texas there's way more than that. So I can't imagine the number in the U.S. again, I go back to killing season. I thought they did have a lot of good information. One thing that they had, because of course I'm going to go through and I'm going to vet it all. I'm going to look it up. Is this person
Right.
BSing? They said Scorpio's daughter went missing. I found her old blog. She's definitely not around past 2004. So whoever that was, gone. Like,
well, we were talking about Lil Tay last night. Lil Tay is not, in fact, dead. So that was a whole, somebody scammed her Instagram. I didn't even know who that was. I had to look it up. She was a little 14-year-old Instagrammer.
She's a little child that need to be grounded.
That's another terrible story. Thank you, everyone. We hit 5,000 during the stream. Woo! Yay. Thank you, Calcio fan, for pointing that out. Yeah, look, up to like 5,010. So thank you, everyone who has subscribed. So where should we go? We still have 937 people watching Oblivious Benson. Ooh. So what is there anything else that you would like to?
I kind of want to address this person, Winter Cartagena. He's talking about Pac. Let's talk about Pac for a second. See how it says he has real time
comment? Can you star that comment for me so that I can pull it up and starred?
Winter, let me get to your comment here. Can you see it? I don't know if you can see. It's 9:29 p.m. I think Pat killed SG.
Can you just put a star on it?
It won't let me. Wait.
All the way on the right side. Yeah, just hit that star.
What is happening? I don't know how to.
All right, let me go to it.
Yeah, I don't think it lets me. I don't think I have that power.
You don't have the power?
Yeah, it doesn't give me the
power.
I like what Will brought up because I'd like to debunk it real quick. Okay, so he wanted his payment for his time. Let's talk about that. So in SW work, he already got paid. Drivers don't leave without getting paid first. And a lot of it is done via credit card or cash, and they get the cash up front. So he had no reason to chase her down and get his money. He already had the money. He actually had to help get her out of the house. According to the phone call, you can hear it. Another thing about Pac is, yes, he does have real ties to human trafficking. So do every single woman that is a victim in this case. They had ties to it. So do all the Johns that they've seen in the past. Like, this is human trafficking, like what they're doing. These women, like, whether they willfully participated in it or not, you're still being technically trafficked. Like, you're still going county by county. You're moving around and you're being used and you're having to pay people to protect you. It's all the same. And the thing with Michael Pack is he's making so much money as a driver, and then he doesn't even have to protect the girls. Like, what a great job. You don't even have to do your job and you get paid. I don't think that he chased her down to kill her. That would put his entire, like you're talking about, his human trafficking, that would put him at risk. He would get murdered. Like, the people who hired him from the escort services. And there were a couple of different services back then. There was one called James Bond Entertainment that handled one of the girls. There was one called Her P Word, which I'm not going to say, but it's a dirty word. P and then C. You know what I mean? That company, there were a bunch of companies that were running out of Massapequa, Long Island at the time. You can actually see them in the forums. And they'll tell you, don't order from this company. It's a sham. Don't order from this one. This Michael Pack guy had a lot of success driving around these girls and made a lot of money, and they do get paid pretty much up front. Like, sometimes if the girls get tips, they then give it to their pimp. If they don't have a pimp, then they will sometimes share that with the I don't know what they're called, the call girl. It's the actual person who arranges the date. Usually they get a fee up front though. So the motive for him just isn't there to me. Like, if it was Pac, first of all, let's say he choked her and he broke her hyoid bone, right? He would have marks on his hands, like very deep marks or something. Like, there would be evidence. There would be DNA. Like, it's really hard to kill someone without DNA. You know what I mean? Unless you're planning in advance. And as you can tell by the 911 call, he was trying to get her out of there after dropping her off. She'd been there, I believe, a couple of hours, right? He also cooperated with the police. He gave interviews. He talked about it over time. I think that some of these people, witnesses, whether they're a piece of crap or not, like whether they're a bad person doing a bad thing or not, talking to police when you already work in that industry is such a high risk. Like, it's such a high risk. He could have kind of just refused to speak publicly to the media too, but he still did,
right.
He also got doxxed.
Yeah, somebody said here he gave a deposition that he
Yeah.
said that he did not get paid. Michelina Serena, you said
Oh,
you
yeah.
wanted to talk to Oblivious Benson. I sent you the link. Check your messenger for the link if you want to come in. Just
I don't believe for a second he didn't get paid, by the way. I think he did get paid. If he says he got paid, that's on the record, and then he's at the whim of a sex trafficking charge. He can lie about that. It's perjury, sure, but he can do that, and it doesn't really affect anything if he didn't do it. You know what I mean? So
Nicola
I think in
Diaz.
his eyes,
Yeah.
no. And they get paid in cash, the drivers. So do the call girls. So, like, and I'm not talking about the girl who goes on the date. I'm talking about the girl who answers the phone. They're all different.
Right.
Like, when you have a service, it's usually one person answering a phone in a dirty hotel room. And then she calls a guy in another hotel room. He's the driver. He gets the girl, and then they go. You know, she puts on a wig or whatever outfit the guy says. She grabs whatever they need for the date, because sometimes they're not sex. Sometimes the dates are like really bizarre situations. Yeah, he can't say he got paid. It's a crime. Exactly. Like,
that's true. That's our retired Irish detective coming in hot.
And then that also gives them probable cause. I believe retired Irish detective can maybe confirm this. At that point, it gives him probable cause to really get up his ass. Pardon my language, but like, he's dumb, but he's not that dumb, and he makes so much money. I just don't see that. Like, people don't realize these drivers and the people answering the phone and arranging it are making more money than the girls most of the time, because the girls have to end up still giving it to a pimp.
Perry says, considering how much of a commotion Shannon Gilbert created, I would be surprised if he would have risked attacking her and dumping the body. Yeah, he knew that she was on the phone with 911, right?
I would ask who. Yeah, totally. Also, like, do you remember in the phone call when he's like, "Are you calling 911?" He literally does like that. He goes, "Are you calling now?" Like, to him, that's so shocking.
Yeah.
For a girl to call 911 in that situation, something has to be going on, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if a girl is calling 911 in that situation and it seems like nothing's going on, that's what it sounded like to me. Like, he was reacting to, like, what are you doing?
Right. What are you calling 911 for? You've been in far worse situations than this, kind of, right? It was kind of like sarcastic.
Big time it was. And it seemed like he wasn't taking her seriously. Now, other people fault him for that. At the time, if he knew her body was going to end up dead, you know, or if he knew she was going to end up dead or he was going to kill her, it's not the tone. It doesn't fit at all. I just don't see that. But that Hackett guy and that other guy, I do question, because earlier you're saying, someone was saying people don't want lights in their neighborhood, right?
Yeah.
Well, do you want a screaming woman in your yard?
Yeah, I don't know that Oak Beach neighborhood isn't lit, but I do know that Ocean Parkway is not lit. Like, that is weird. I think it's sort of a gated community, and there's a lot of, expensive homes in there.
There's a lot of expensive homes.
They all have their own lighting, yeah.
And if you got a girl screaming in your backyard, I feel like the homeowner might be more angry than the driver, who could just easily leave.
Yeah.
I would look at who has the motive to shut her up. I don't think it's Pack. He was very cooperative. I think that the guy who, what's weird is Peter Hackett goes towards the cameras. Like, he goes towards interviews a lot. And I've talked with a couple of people. I have a saying. I met, like, okay, cokeheads, heroin junkies, people who drink, they go away from the cops. They're like, get the cops away from me. Meth heads go towards the cops. They're like, let me help you. I got info.
Oh, that reminds me. I have a friend who wrote a book called Addiction, Thanks for Nothing, and she's going to come on the show next week, and we're going to talk about the ripple effects of addiction and alcoholism on family members and what it's like to love an alcoholic or an addict and how to protect yourself and get out of it. So if you're interested in seeing that, put a 1 in the chat, because she's going to come on next week. Wonderland Alice says, I'm always falling down the rabbit hole, and this discussion is giving me more sources to research. Thank you, Oblivious Benson. And I mean, her screen name actually suits her very well. I mean, I think
I'm oblivious to a lot of, like, basic things about cases.
No, not
but
your
if
screen
you want to
name.
know their cousins,
Wonderland Alice.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Well, me personally, if I might not, like, I still get the names of the girls mixed up, which I'm such a piece of crap, and I'm trying so hard to learn. I just have had 11
400 cases at once. So I mean, you can't and you're doing a million things at a time. So that's totally understandable. But at
the same time, I can remember the cousin of the person who posted this thing in Reddit.
Right,
it makes no sense.
Yeah,
so
that's kind of where out the things that it wants to remember, right? Here we looked at a house in Oak Beach. Hi, Rochella, one of my mods. She's amazing. way back right next to the old Oak Beach Inn. That's another connection that somebody pointed out to me that, were any of these girls frequent customers of the Oak Beach Inn, because that was a famous bar that was right on that strip. And it was a pretty cool place right on the water back
So
in
I
the
looked
day.
up all the SW hotels.
Mhm.
And the way I figured that out was I went to usasexguide.nl, bestgfe.ch, and Utopia Guide, which are three of the big escort forums from back then. Utopia Guide is the one that goes back to 2002, if you want to research. utopiaguide.nl, or PL.
That's the one we were looking at earlier that had all the disgusting posts.
Big time. So that one, and they have rip-off reports. They have people talking about the girls, naming the girls. They'll even connect you to their ads, and then you can run the ad through the Wayback Machine, and then see what they look like if you need to. Or sometimes they won't show the picture; they'll scrub that. But you can see a lot about a specific person or an SW, but also the hotels. They list hotels all the time, and you can also this is very obvious, but just Google what is the hotel with a lot of sex workers in this city, and Yelp will show you, Google will show you, and you can write down the ones that have a high sex worker population. And in Oak Beach specifically, or Massapequa anyway, that whole area right there, on YouTube there are literal news pieces about Sayville Hotel and about the different lodges where the owner was taking money from the pimps to allow the sex work to go on and went to jail for it.
Great.
And they interview the sex workers, and they interview the hotel manager and this poor guy who was living there with his mom disabled, and they got kicked out the day the hotel got raided because the owner of it, which is right there, was taking money from pimps and drivers to allow the women to do things with the guys. And one of the women was talking about how, one of the guys who came in frequently was a cop. And also he paid off cops, and the cops took the money, and they also took payment by having sex with the women.
Yeah, the Comac Motor Inn. Remember the Comac Motor Inn used to have these commercials in the middle of the night, when there were like only network television, before cable, I think even. And it would say, come to the Comac Motor Inn. They had the beds that you would put quarters in, and they would vibrate and spin around. And, they had those also those commercials for, I forget, the hotels in the Poconos with the champagne hot tubs, and just,
I stayed at one in Arkadelphia, Arkansas, a place called College Inn. Never go there. You know what? I don't care. Don't go there. It's you put the coins in, the bed shakes, and the only thing to watch is Forensic Files, which is awesome, but I don't want to watch it while I'm shaking violently.
Wow.
Scary place. There are places like that, yes. Spill the beans. If you know this place, if you know a place in Oak Beach where there's a lot of sex workers, or where a lot of Johns hang out, or where there is a lot of corruption, even modern day streetwalkers, they aren't all online. There are old school chicks that hang out at those places. Talk about it, like openly talk about it. And never been there to the White Castle.
The White Castle next door is White Castle.
I'm all about stitching. Spill the beans. Tell us where to look. Tell us where these
that's what it is. The Mount Airy Lodge. Yes, the Mount Airy Lodge. That was the one with the champagne hot tubs.
Can we talk Kohberger for a second?
Yes, because Michelina, we had Michelina backstage, but she just got lost. She just disappeared. So we'll wait for her to come back. She has a question for you.
There's a couple of murderers in Pennsylvania who are wanted for various crimes, and one of them, I think, Mount Airy Lodge. There was like something where someone was murdered, and this guy was basically, he did it, and he worked there, and it was a very Carrie Stainer situation. Like, this guy was like fixing ACs and stuff for rooms, but also murdering people. And then his DNA got busted like 23, 24 years later. And a lot of people had been, when the Kohberger stuff came out, they're like, maybe he did that. It's like, dude, he was 8. You know what I mean? These are simple things you can do to whittle down, as look at time frames and stuff.
Right. Do the math, people. Dreamscape, the cops have talked to other SWs who have had past contact with Rex. I wonder where he took them. Yes, and that's true. The Suffolk County Sheriff's Department has been interviewing any of the ladies who are currently incarcerated to talk to them. So yeah, that's interesting. What about Rex is that girl Nikki, who was all over the news, who claims that she had a date with him somewhere in Port Jefferson. He tried to get her to go in his car with him to his house. So, where did he take them? Did he take them to his house? We don't know.
I don't think that phrase, you don't shit where you eat.
Yeah, but if his wife was in
If his
Iceland,
wife was
and we
gone,
don't
you
know.
might. You might. And also look at all the other guys that have been busted for this sort of stuff that I was just talking about. That guy Rodeo or whatever, Raymond Rodeo. He was like, that was his parents' basement and they were living there and they had no idea he had 2 women.
Yeah.
Look at Ariel Castro. He kept 3 women for 10 years with his kids home.
Yeah. Michelina, come back. I know I saw you were there, but you somehow you clicked out. So try coming in again, and maybe if you turn off your camera and just use your audio, you won't get kicked out, because I know your
Winter
internet's not great where
Cartagena
you are.
brought that up again. You're right. Gus 911 call, he did say there was a black SUV chasing her, because there was a black SUV chasing her. Michael Pack's like, come on, get in the car. What are you doing? I need to take you back. And then it gave up and he left. It doesn't mean he killed her. You know what I mean? Like, that's
Right,
actually with his motive, with his statement, that follows exactly what he said. He's like, yeah, I was chasing her. I was trying to get her. Like, get back in the car. What are you doing? Like, first he's trying to get her out of the house. Then she's running into the woods. He's sitting there going, I'm in charge of protecting her. I need to get my tip. He did get paid. I think he did get paid, no doubt. But you do get tips. Like, and also he probably didn't want her to get hurt. Like, what are you doing? Like, I can totally see a number of issues happening, but I think whoever wanted her to be quiet, you know what I mean? Maybe. Right. Also, when you look at you look out Peter Hackett's deck and it's right there. Like, that was crazy to me, seeing her mom stand on that deck and say, whose deck am I on? And they said, Peter Hackett's. And she's like, why did you take me here, to the cop? And he said, this is the best way you can view the site. Holy crap. So he could have walked out on that deck and seen her this whole time? Like, that's the part that trips me out. I'm not saying Hackett did anything, but I am saying it is weird that he moved to Florida.
Peter Pranzo, who is law enforcement, retired law enforcement, says the new Suffolk County PD task force has declared Shannon Gilbert's death to be accidental. They are the real deal. They got it correct, although many believe differently. Yeah, I think a lot of people do believe differently, but I don't know. Rodney sounded very, very confident in his assertion that it was accidental. So
I have a hard time believing either or without knowing more about the hyoid bone. Like, was it separated? Like, was it really? And was it done by animals or was it done by a ligature? She was found a year later, right? When you look at the decomp on a year-old body, a year and a couple months, look at the decomp on that body. Look at the fact that it's by the ocean, heavy erosion. You've got humidity. You've got, multiple seasons working. You've got birds. You've got animals out there. Are there coyotes on Oak Beach? We have coyotes here. I don't know what they're dingoes. No, I don't know what they have out there.
Coyotes, but people doing? I know.
Yeah, who knows? Buzzards. I don't know what seabirds, like
hawks.
I would look into what animals are out there and could cause whatever happened to her body. If she had if her hyoid bone was separated completely from the body and the head was like 20 feet that way, sounds to me like an animal, because who does that and then rips the head off and throws it? You can't. The skin's still attached. I want to know how far away it was from her body. If it was really far, it's probably an animal, and it could be an accident. But if it was close, if it was right there and it was just slightly broken, if there's an abrasion on it, that's totally different. And also if her necklace is there, think about that. I read that all their jewelry was still present. That's interesting. Like, you got someone wearing a necklace. Why would you choke her? Like, you would think it would get broken. You know what I mean? Or something. Seems weird. So I don't know.
I don't know. That is.
I do wonder if she had a heart attack from fear. And it's really impossible to tell, even with an autopsy a year and a half later, whether someone died of a heart condition. Like, can you imagine? There's
skeletal.
No way. Yeah, there's no way to tell.
Diane Cusimano Valentine. The suspect is an avid hunter. He's alleged to have committed multiple violent homicides. I would not put it past anyone committing crimes like this, mixing human and game remains to conceal.
I think that would be really risky. Like, I just think mixing game on purpose, especially because, like, she just said on Oak Beach, like, they don't have coyotes or anything. Like, that might work in Texas or in, like, Florida or places where there's a lot of wild animals. But if you've only got 3 different kinds of animals on Oak Beach, why would you plant extra evidence? that could potentially show where you have been. If they don't have a specific type of bird in this island, but it only exists in Oklahoma, and then he plants that bird, it just makes no sense. Like I wouldn't add evidence to a situation to confuse people when, you know, you're already like on a beach burying him and you've got ocean all around you. That blows my mind. He's surrounded by ocean.
Right.
Why leave him out in the open? That's to make a statement, I think.
To make a statement, or because he wanted to go back and visit them, and that was his thing.
It was for a purpose that he didn't destroy them forever, and that's what freaks me out. Like,
yeah, Tina Lucille says she was nude. Her clothes were found to the left of Hackett's house, and Tina Lucille is quite the armchair detective.
So she took her clothes off while running. That's really interesting. There's I wish I could remember the name of it, but there's a weird medical condition where people go into a psychosis and they take all their clothes off. They believe that happened to this kid, again, here in Texas, in San Marcos, a missing boy. He was smoking and he was driving to his friend's house, and it's out in the San Marcos Lulling area, and he took all his clothes off after getting stoned, driving. He pulled over. He got in a bit of an accident. He took them off, and then he just ran into the woods, and no one's ever seen him again. He's still missing. They can't even find his bones. They don't know where this kid is.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's crazy. He's like a college kid, and they determined that this is actually kind of common when you have somebody who is experiencing a psychosis. Him in particular, I believe he had a couple of blunts, and he might have been doing I brought this up to you the other day, I think Flocka spice type of stuff. But
Yes.
like over there, hypothermia, you get hot. It was, what was it, May? You can go back and look at the weather reports for any date in the past, by the way. So I would go look at the weather, and, you know, she could have just as simply like maybe taken a smoke of something she's never hit before, because then again, a year and multiple months later, like, what's going to be present in a toxicology on bones back then?
Right.
You know, and one thing my friend told me was, oh yeah, I totally got off track because of ADD earlier, but the bug thing, when you have a body that's been eaten by animals or bugs, if the bugs are still there during decomp, they take the bugs, forensic labs, and they grind them up. And they grind them up in an actual blender. They make a bug juice. And then they do the toxicology report on the bug juice. The bugs eating your body will take in what you have consumed or what's in your bloodstream.
That's interesting.
So while they can't get alcohol maybe off a pile of bones or some, you know, body matter, they might see alcohol, meth, fentanyl in those bugs, in that bug juice. And they can now determine the bugs ate you had fentanyl in your system, therefore the bugs ate fentanyl, this person was on fentanyl. And that's how they determine a lot of that stuff. It's really crazy, and they can determine exact amounts, how old it was. Now, if she was past that point and there's no bugs on her to test, there's no animals, you know what I mean? There's no blood. What can they test? You know, they can test like marrow. If her hair is there, most hair follicle tests can go back like, I think, 6 months. So I know that they said that there was nothing that came up in her toxicology report, but I don't necessarily think that that could be because maybe she wasn't slipped something. You know what I mean? It really, I've had friends who have been slipped drugs to make them pass out, like at bars. Someone tried to dose them, and people react differently. One of my friends passed out. She's dead weight. I had to carry her. We didn't make a police report. She didn't remember anything. Another friend of mine it happened to went completely crazy, also took her clothes off and ran out into traffic and started throwing mud at cars.
Okay, don't ever leave your drink unattended. And this is what I tell my daughters too. Never leave your drink unattended. Never let someone else bring you a drink. Always open up whatever you're going to drink out of a can or a bottle yourself. And don't ever, I mean, these are, you know, basic safety things. And it's a shame that we have to teach this to our children.
And watch your bartender make your drink.
Yeah.
Because the amount of bartenders who get busted or date rape, insane.
Yeah.
Insane.
That lady Cole says some drugs definitely have people getting naked. And yeah, just to share a funny story, because, you know, this is a little bit heavy right now. I'm going to segue into something funny. When I went to the most recent Dead and Company show, which were allegedly their final shows in San Francisco at Oracle Park. I forget which night it was, 1, 2, or 3. I think it was the third night, the final night. There was a woman, we were on the floor, you know, in the field, I guess, was all, you know, standing room. And there was a woman dancing around, happy as could be, fully, completely buck naked. She was probably in her late 60s. I don't know what dress she was having the greatest time. And I had never seen that before, in a public concert like that. And nobody seemed to mind. She was
I
just
feel like
getting her
sometimes
groove on,
I've seen a lot of stuff, but I feel like a prude sometimes when I go to concerts and I see some stuff going on. I'm like, oh my God, I think they're humping. Like, I get like,
This is
ugh.
like a family show. There's children, there's all generations there.
Oh, I saw a woman take her top off at Hanson, and it was like kids all around. I'm just like, excuse me, ma'am. Like, I love Taylor too, but I'm not about to take my top off. Let's calm down here. This is Hanson.
Yes.
But yeah, people get wild. And I do wonder, like, I think that people can also misread autopsy results, and that can be a huge problem. It could say there was no blood or alcohol found in this toxicology report.
Yeah.
Does that mean she didn't drink any? Well, I don't know. If the body is 5 years old, I don't think you're going to find any.
Right, exactly.
That doesn't mean she didn't. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And a lot of people think, oh, this is victim blaming. No, we are stating facts here, people. Like, it's,
right.
I don't think she did. I don't know. She could or she couldn't have. I don't know. But I'll tell you this much. People dose women all the time. People like, I'm not even condemning her for it. If you try a drug for the first time that you think is safe, you're told is safe, and it goes bad for you, that really sucks. That doesn't mean you're a bad person. It's an unfortunate situation. You probably shouldn't do that again in the future. That's what I'd say to someone. But if you, I hate bringing this up, but it cannot be overlooked. And I'm going to preface it with this. I have mentally ill people in my family. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not fair. It sucks to be born with chemical imbalances. It sucks to be born with issues and to have poor childhoods and have all sorts of things that can contribute to us later having mental health problems. Shannon's sister had a mental health crisis and murdered her mom. A lot of us know that.
Tragedy.
I believe, I hesitate to speak on this. I'm not sure exactly what she has, but I thought I read it was a form of schizophrenia. If it was whatever it was, if it was something genetic, I do know for a fact that schizophrenia and various other psychosis issues, things that can lead to psychosis, they have specific time frames where you're almost right for the pickings for these symptoms to happen. I know that young men 30 to 40 years old, I guess I wouldn't be young, but men 30 to 40 have a really high chance of experiencing schizophrenic symptoms in that age range, and it's less of a chance to experience them as a child, and vice versa with women. Like, there's different things that can contribute to this. I do wonder if she was given something even totally legal, something completely innocent. Maybe, like, I know that people say salvia is yes, it's legal, it's a smokable drug, but it's terrible. Like, it causes a lot of hallucinations for people. I've seen people freak out on it. Totally legal. What if somebody gave her something with synthetic marijuana on it and she hid it? And that's why it didn't pop up in a drug test. Synthetic marijuana, it's not real. It has no THC. It's not going to. Right. That, if she did have any underlying genetic mental health issues on the horizon that had not yet presented themselves to her yet, the chance of her having a psychosis in a highly stressful situation like that, very high.
And it could have been, a combination of things. If she was on any medication and she took something that, interacted with medication, I don't think we're ever really going to know.
Oh, that's so sad. I didn't know that.
She was. I did read that too. She was put in foster care and her sisters were not, which was really horrible. Yeah.
Who was put? Sarah was?
No, Shannon.
Oh, Shannon was put in foster care. She's the oldest though, right?
I can't recall now.
If she's the oldest, I hate to say it, but that's kind of common. Like, if you look at Nicholas Cruz, the Parkland shooter, his family, his sister and him were separated. Sometimes mothers, when they're, especially single moms who are undergoing addiction, if they can't handle their kid, seeking adoption is the most selfless thing they could do in a world where they're doing a lot of selfish things. So I'm not going to condemn anyone for that. If her mother put her up for adoption or foster care, it's sad, but maybe it's for the better. You know what I mean? Like, if times were that hard.
No, I agree. But I think that people are just, chiming in on what. Okay, so we are almost up on 2 hours here. We still have 924 people watching. So if anybody has any specific questions for Ms. Cat, just put hashtag cat with a K into your chat question. You can capitalize it all. I won't get mad if you use all caps, just so that I can see it.
I
Go
did
ahead.
want to go through a couple of things because I know a couple of people might leave this and they might go, okay, I want to go do that. I want to go through escort forums and I want to see if I can find any of the girls' names on old posts. I want to encourage anybody to do that. And if he finds it, because here's the thing, I can't do it on my own. It would take me years.
Mm-hmm.
So if there are 1,000 people out there actively looking, and some people might go, oh, well, I'm sure the FBI's on it. Look, we were sure of that for 10 years and look what happened. I'm saying just look. You know, it's not going to hurt anyone except maybe the Drons, and screw them. No one likes them anyway. So I think that it can be a really good idea to go look up things like that and see if you can find any data traces, data trails. You can use search functions. I've compiled a list of screen names of various people who were serial killers or people who committed these types of crimes, and their screen names are on record. So if you happen to see someone with this name, you know who it is, and that might be something to alert, especially if let's say you see a post that's from a guy and he says, you know, I took her out, she was awful, her name is this, here's a link, and then you go to that link and it's a girl and you recognize her and you go, oh, that girl's missing. If that username is sexaddict53885, that's Philip Markov. He's a serial killer from Boston, the Boston Strangler. He frequented these John forums. He frequented a lot of forums.
Somebody keeps asking this question. So wait, you have notes there, so you're not going to lose your train of thought. But have
Yeah.
you found yellow being a code word
in the pedo and child sex community?
Mm-hmm.
Not so much, but yellow is like, it's kind of strange. I've seen that pop up before in forums for the gay community. And it means pee-pee play.
Oh.
Like people will talk about yellow and they're talking about peeing.
Okay.
It's pretty gross.
All right. Well, you would know because you're in these forums all day long. But thank you, Kelp, for
Yeah,
that question.
no.
I know you've asked it a couple of times and it keeps going by so fast that I have not. Everybody wants you to come back to teach us more. This is fascinating. Okay, so go back to your list there, and then we're gonna wrap up.
Joseph James D'Angelo, the Golden State Killer, he was in forums, but he, instead of going in John forums, he went in true crime forums, and he would go on the old Unsolved Mysteries forum, and he would go into the old cold case forums, and he would share his insights on who he think did it, knowing that it was him the whole time. And I need to pull his screen name, and I'll post it later, but I think it was like PPB something.
That's kind of reminiscent of Koberger. I know you wanted to segue into that before, but that's interesting.
Oh, Koberger's is XR with, what is it? EXARR is his rap name on his SoundCloud. If you'd like to hear Brian Koberger's rap, he raps about.
Oh, you sent me that rap. Yeah,
it was pretty bad.
But he did have a lot of like Reddit activity, right? And there were a lot of other forums.
Oh, well, no. He had some Reddit activity that was very limited. People thought he was this other guy, and he was definitely not that guy. They also thought he was Papa Rogers, which is so dumb because that guy was actively online after. And people are like, oh, he's not posting in here. He must not exist. No, you can literally look up that IP address. It is not him. It is I think it's a guy named Terry in like the Midwest.
Well, let's not dox anybody, but yeah.
No, that guy's using a fake name though. Like that, it's literally someone in the Midwest. It has nothing to do with him. Koberger was using EXARR, and EXARR, those with visual snow no, which is a long screen name. And he uses a forum that is about visual snow because when it was like 2010 to 2012, he was experiencing extreme symptoms of psychosis, and he was getting this syndrome called visual snow. If you Google it right now, you will see examples of it. It literally looks like if millions of snowflakes are falling in front of your face. Imagine if you're watching TV and then all of a sudden everything goes fuzzy. Like, you know how a TV goes fuzzy? Imagine that
back in the day when the
vision.
channel would go off the air at night, it would just be static.
So he would randomly wake up in the morning or just be like sitting at a traffic light, and that would happen. And everything looks like that. Now imagine what that does to your brain as like a middle school kid, an early high school kid. Like all of a sudden you're like, when I almost lost this eye, I saw yellow and that's all I could see. And I never knew why. And then for a minute, I would see the yellow move. And I don't know how to explain how it moved, but it would be shadows. And I'm like, why am I seeing this? Well, when I got to the hospital, it's because my eye was dangling in my head. You know, it's like literally dangling. So my eye is seeing blood. And that's what it looks like visually.
I can't
When
believe
you
that you survived that experience, but we'll have
well,
to talk about that another
people, we
one.
get a lot of adrenaline too. That's another thing people don't realize. When you're that scared, like this is a good point for Shannon. When you have that kind of adrenaline, when they say you can like lift up that is true. There, I hadn't worked out. I joke I haven't worked out for 30 something years. I picked this girl up by her hair. I'm not a strong person. I broke this wrist 3 times. I picked her up. I punched. I've never punched someone. I choked her to get her off me while she was stabbing me, and I felt nothing. You don't feel stabs. You just don't. Your body protects you from that. I'm not saying like, hey, go out and get stabbed. It's not so bad. But I'm saying like, if you do, just know like, I
Your
don't remember
body,
any of that. You don't feel
right.
it.
Your body
It feels
protects
like
you.
numb. So if she, and that's fight or flight, I learned. That's being in shock. If Shannon was that scared and was in that shock, the one comfort that I would try to give someone based on at least my experience of feeling like I'm about to die is you don't really feel any pain. And you're in such a state of shock, you get unbelievably strong. And I think that it's important for, people to know that if these, a lot of people see like, oh, this must be so scary for this person. It's so sad that she had to go this way. I can only imagine what the last thing was that she was thinking. I could tell you from experience that when you think that you're about to die, you feel nothing. Like it's not painful. And some people might want to argue with me on that. That's just my experience, but I looked up a lot of science on it and spoke to a lot of therapists and scientists about this because of some of the feelings that I had after the fact. I needed closure. And I can tell you that like that feeling of numbness, everyone's told me it's fight or flight.
Mm-hmm.
It's shock. And I think whoever the higher power is, whatever causes it, science, whatever, I think science, thank you for shock. Because without it, I would hate to have felt that. And the only comfort that I think I would take in these sort of situations, if it was my relative, was at least knowing like maybe they didn't feel pain because of the shock. I hope.
Right.
I hope she didn't. But also just know a lot of people go, oh, how do you run through these? How could one guy run through these reeds to attack a girl? Fight or flight, if you're also a killer and someone's getting away from you, you might be panicking, thinking, I'm going to get caught my whole life. Like, I can see him running through those reeds. Any guy. I could see her running through them because she's scared. She must
Right.
have been scared of something pretty big. And I don't know if it was something real or something that was in her head, but no fault of her own.
Right.
But either way, like, mental health and these things are an issue and they should be considered, especially like it's, maybe her hyoid bone was broken. That changes things.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of painful to see like a family be shut down without a definitive answer. And I do
I
think
know.
that by not getting that definitive answer, it's gonna suck more for them. So I am all about like, yeah, they should reinvestigate Shannon 100%. They should rerun DNA tests. They should try to find old data, old cameras, whatever they need. Canvass the area again, talk to new witnesses, just whatever you can do. Like try to figure out what happened to her.
Right.
Don't just discount it as an accident, especially because even if it was an accident, it was psychosis, give them the reason. You know what I mean? Give them the reason why so that they can. And again,
Yeah.
I hate to say it, there's not even such a thing as closure with all the
I know,
victims
but
I've
at
talked
least just
to.
answers, at
Just
least
answers.
answers. Yeah.
Sometimes you just want to know. And one thing that I hear from a lot of victims that's very common is when I'm trying to tiptoe around something, when I'm talking to them, like when I'm like, well, this woman was, I don't want to tell you what happened to her, but this happened to her and she might have been related to this guy. They go, just tell me, I've heard it all. They've heard so much awful stuff, the
Mm-hmm.
families. They've heard the worst news they can hear in their life. You're not going to surprise them, but there's no reason to be extra or to keep bringing it up when they don't want you to. So if you are delving in any of this, any of you people going out looking, um, try to like protect the families. You know what I mean? Like really consider
Right.
them. I wouldn't reach out to family members unless the police have ignored you and you know what you have is solid. And even them, don't like call their home or anything like that. Like me personally, I never really reach out to them unless I see them reach out. And the way I do that is if the sister is on Reddit going, help, I need help. That's how I met one of the victim's sisters. We became very close and we found a lot of info on the Roxanne case. We became very
Wow.
close and
Peop-
she wanted help. They'll tell you if they want help. If they want you to leave them alone, they'll also tell you. So, just be respectful of that and feel free to sleuth all you want, but if you're going to submit tips, make sure they're real. Make sure you vet everything. And if somebody tells you, oh, I heard this girl was friends with this girl, check on it.
Right.
You know
Because
what I
we have
mean?
not been able to really verify that connection between. That's one thing I got stuck on, was the fact that people were saying that Rita Tangridi's adult daughter was best friends with Melissa Barthélemy, which was really an odd connection for me. And so it got me into a whole other rabbit hole. But we need to wrap up because we're at 2 hours and 8 minutes. So I'm going to give you an opportunity for final thoughts. And before I do that, I want to just thank you to all my mods
Totally.
for keeping the chat classy
You're
and
talking to
for
me.
helping, and for Scott and Rochella and Peter and Donna Marie and Dawn Marie. And if there's anyone I forgot, tell me. Thank you so much for keeping the chat classy. Oblivious Benson, people want to know if you do have a YouTube channel. Do you have one under that name, under Oblivious
Yeah,
Benson?
just go add me at Oblivious Benson, and when I put stuff out, true crime related or investigatory, I'll put it on there for you guys.
So do you want to link that stuff in your channel description, the stuff that we talked about tonight, or do you want to give me all those websites and I can just put them under this channel description?
I can
Whatever's
send you all those
easier for people.
websites.
Yeah, send me all the
100%.
things. So, the Judy records, all that stuff that we talked about, so we can link it for you guys, so you guys have one place to go for all of your armchair sleuthing.
I do plan
keep
on
it classy.
I do plan on doing some live streams in the future with some ex-sex workers and talking to them about some of the things they've seen and what they would like from the community of web sleuthers, if you will, and true crime enthusiasts. I've met some who have told me, like, this chick's missing and the police won't do anything about it, and I just wish someone would talk about it. And I've met people whose daughters were killed 30 years ago and it was an Air Force officer and they can't get justice and no one will talk about it, and the police shut them down, and they're like, hey, tell people about this. Anytime I see a call to arms or like someone saying I desperately need help with this, I'll look at it. And I'll tell you this much, if I could ask anything of anybody, please go look up the name Kristen Galvan. If you want to do something right now that can help prevent this.
Spell it for everybody.
Yes, it is Kristen Galvan. If you want to prevent what the type of stuff we're seeing,
Galvan.
Galvan. Look at cases that are ongoing right now that have people saying, help us, we need your help. Kristen's is currently ongoing. If we could have done this type of stuff for Shannon, for example, or any of the girls in the past, wouldn't that be lovely? We can do that right now for Kristen. She's a high school girl in Houston, Texas. She was sex trafficked, taken from her home. The cops raided her house after getting a tip. Her sex trafficker changed all her socials, took everything from her, beat her, put her on the street on Bissonnet in Houston. If you YouTube Bissonnet, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. It's open air sex work. Thousands of women dressed like literally in tiny thongs walking up and down the street with lines of cars, and the police do nothing about it. They're trying to, but they do nothing. And they can't. It's a very complicated situation, but there are young girls who are younger than 17 being trafficked out there in the open air, being put in these clothes. And imagine as a mother finding your daughter on an escort website and she's missing. That's what happened to Kristen's mom. She was returned to her mother after being rescued by police. She had to be moved out of the county to be rehabilitated. She got rehabilitated, and 2 days after I think she was given back her phone or something, she disappears again. Her traffickers were put in prison, but that was after they caught them. When they kicked down the door, they found all the other girls except Kristen, because when traffickers know that the police are coming for them, they move them. And having a minor being trafficked would have increased his charges. He got a slap on the wrist compared to what he could have gotten. This guy, Arian Johnson, he claimed he was a rapper. So there's a couple of these guys that have been trafficking her. And her mother, after the second time she got trafficked, her mother, again, put out a missing thing, starts looking for her, finds her on a website, on an escort site in Atlanta, goes there to find her, and she's been moved again. So there is a very good chance that Kristen is still alive today. It's been 1 or 2 years. I think she's like 18 or 19 now. She's got very distinct physical features. She was definitely trafficked on multiple escort websites. if you have free time and you can go through these websites and look for girls who look like her, if it's someone being held captive, there will likely be two people in the ad because they have a handler. They have a girl that's there to watch them, train them, and make sure they don't escape. So you're going to see stuff for couples and duos. You're going to want to look there. You're going to want to look for this girl. Look up her name and you'll see all her stats. If you see an ad for her, contact the FBI right away. Contact the FBI. Do it. That is the...
Wow.
I think she's out there. Her mom thinks she's out there. Someone who's been trafficked twice and survived it and then is still actively being posted randomly on websites that are not in the state of Texas. We need people all over the U.S. to be looking for her. And that's the type of stuff that I'm talking about. If you see a girl that's recently missing and sex trafficked, or a guy, trans people are also a big part of this movement where they get basically cast aside. So I would highly recommend persons of color, women who are sex trafficked in general, young teens, and trans people, be heightened on the lookout for them because they get the least representation. Sex workers in general don't get a lot of representation in, being looked for.
Yeah, 100%. Kat, just to confirm the spelling of Kristen, it's Kristen or IN?
I think it's Ian, but let me double check.
Okay,
I just want to make sure I'm 100%.
Thank you, Jennifer Nobles, for pointing that out.
And also her mom has a really good, it's Ian. It's KRISTEN GALVAN. She first went missing in 2019. She was 15 years old. Wow. And she went missing again, I believe, in 2021. And so now she'd be like 17 or 18. So like, even though she's of age, like she was trafficked, it was definitely a kidnapping. The scary part about her case is one woman did publicly snitch on a Facebook page, like literally said, I remember Kristen. She was in this house with me, told her mom about it. And then when I went to that woman's page, she had just died. And a lot of people were really upset, saying like they shouldn't have done this to her. So I do think that there is some safety concerns and stuff like this, which is why I say go to the FBI. You know what I mean? Like give that tip, call Houston police, and then go to the FBI. And that's for her case. If you see any other case where you think a person is being trafficked and is still alive, by all means, go look through these same forums. You know what I mean? They don't just work on cold cases. This is happening today. So if you see something online, say something.
Right. Say something. And we'll try and use this platform for some good and to try and find some people. And thank you, because I know that everyone here is very tenacious and that they will not stop. So thank you so much for coming tonight and for joining me. And everyone wants you to come back. So you must promise to come back.
I would love to come back and talk to you about NamUs and how to identify bodies on there. I think that if 1,000 people went on NamUs one day, we could probably ID at least 100 missing people.
Excellent. If you guys want to see that, put a 1 in the chat and we will bring Kat back for that. If you have any contact information that you want me to put in the description, if you want anybody to contact you, if they have any information, I will do that as well. Just hang out for 1 second. I'm going to take you off the screen, wave goodbye, and just hang out backstage, and I'll talk to you in 1 second.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody, for hanging in for 2 hours and 15 minutes. I know that we probably could have talked about this all night. You guys are amazing. Amazing. Thank you. We hit 5,000 tonight. So you guys are the best. Please, if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing. Also feel free to definitely like the video, but also feel free to also share the video because that does help the YouTube algorithm. Let us not forget either that this case, the Gilgo case, is about the victims, Melissa Barthelemy, Amber Costello, Megan Waterman, Maureen Brainerd Barnes, who we hopefully will soon see an indictment on. Also, those who may not even be related to Heuermann, Shannon Gilbert, Karen Vergata, who was just identified, Jessica Taylor, and all of the people that were found on Gilgo Beach in Suffolk County, Long Island, which is my backyard and has been for my whole life. And this is a very personal case to me. Also, prayers up and prayers out to everybody in Maui. We are devastated for you. We can't begin to understand what you're going through, the tragedy, the devastation, the horror. And we will also be looking for ways to help in Maui as well. So thank you so much for everyone for hanging in there. And I will see you all again real soon. Good night, everybody.